attending. Welcome to this meeting of the Waste and Street Scene Policy Committee. A special welcome to everybody at home. The meeting today is open to the public. We do have an item that may require the public to be excluded from the meeting. There is a closed appendix to one of the reports later on in the agenda. If members wish to ask questions on the information in the closed report, the meeting will be closed. This meeting will be webcast and recording will also be available to people to view later through the Council's website. It is also possible that Sheffield Live TV will record and rebroadcast this meeting. Do we need to say that every time? Because I don't know if they do. We have received one petition and 4 public questions. Please can I request that mobile phones and other such equipment are switched to silent mode so as not to disturb the conduct of the meeting. There is no fire test planned for today. If there is an emergency evacuation, please take instruction from Town Hall staff. The assembly point is Tudor Square. Can we do introductions? So I'm Councillor Joe Outturn, Councillor for Dawn Totley and Chair of this committee.
Hi, Minesh Parrott, Deputy Chair of the committee.
Hello, Councillor Mark Russing, Councillor for Shire Green and Brightside.
David Barker, Councillor for Richmond Ward.
Councillor Mary Lee, Dartmoor Ward.
Councillor Peter Gilbert for Ecclesall Ward.
Councillor Christine Gilligan, Kubo for Hillsborough Ward and Green Party spokesperson for this committee.
Councillor Tim Huggan, Councillor for Crooks and Crossbow Ward.
Councillor Sue Alston, Councillor for Fulwood.
Thank you. And officers?
Thank you, Chair. My name is Amanda Clayton. I work for Democratic Services.
Thank you, Chair. Robert Parkin, Assistant Director for Legal Services.
Good morning, Richard Eyre, Director of Streets and Regulations.
Thank you. We're all here, so there will be no apologies for absence. As I said earlier, item 13 has a closed appendix and we may ask the public to leave if we need to discuss that. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? No. Thank you. So item 4, minutes of the previous meeting. Can we agree those as a correct record? Or are there any comments? No. If those are correct record, I'll take silence as agreement to the meeting. So those are agreed as a correct record. Thank you. Item 5, public questions and petitions. We have 1 petition and 4 questions from members of the public. So we'll take the petition first. I can see Ibrahim Hussain. Ibrahim, I hope you've been given a copy of the prepared answer. So if you want to do come and present your petition. But I hope that's useful to you. If you want to introduce yourself and present your petition, thank you.
Good morning, Chair and the members. Ibrahim Hussain, ADC Union. No, Chair, I've just seen I have a copy of questions, petitions, but I've not read it because I've just received it, so I'm blindsided to that. Anyway, Ibrahim Hussain, on behalf of the ADCU and as a taxi driver for 37 years, I bring this petition before you for the reasons that under item 10, which has been published, I am asking for a deferment of this policy. Last week, we had a meeting with the chair and the licensing officers and other trade reps, but I was blindsided to any information other than there were slides which the meeting was online, and I asked for a report, and I did email prior as well, but this report was to be published 5 o'clock on the day of the meeting, so the information was not there. But for so many years, we have been raising and asking questions for the availability of accounts, for how the whole system is run within the licensing and is funded, but the finance always drag their feet and we never get what we ask for. And we're asking for forensic audited accounts to be made available with a full breakdown with the trade reps for the trade to work with yourself and to make sure that we have a service. You've got to understand that this service is funded from the license fees only, not from the council tax or any other funds to this service. So it is absolutely our right, and to ask this question, that we, the stakeholders, we, the license fee payers, have the right, and we must be consulted, because as the largest funders of this service, you have to work with us and we have to work with you as well. I think it's a joint partnership on that. The deferment will not just be that you're wrong and we're right and we're wrong and you're in a sense or vice versa, but to work together to address the issues at heart and concern we have. We have a service that is closed to us as the drivers. We have to make appointments. We have a failed IT service that is of a stone age that doesn't work. 3 times it's been funded and 3 times it has wasted our funds from the license fees. Not our fault, it is the council's fault. The IT provision which was provided was never ever used. That is a fact. We have enforcement that is failing the trade. We have cross-border working in Sheffield. Our enforcement can't do anything. We have vehicles parked on our taxi ranks, stationed every other place, and your enforcement officers aren't available or enough of them or to do their job properly. Stanford Road offices I've mentioned, no consultation, closed, and we're going to the Hub Centre. No one talks to us. No one consults us before. Everything is done after that we are informed as well. We want to know what savings you've made. We need to know details. You know, in any organization where you have the customers, you put the customers at the heart of any organization. This is the only organization where I've got my hair's gone grey. I've been here for 16 years and I don't see that you put the customers at the heart. We are dealing with a service that is not delivering for its core customer. We are your core customer. I want to see how you have carried out a full risk assessment and how have you got all this information, because majority of the application and the licensees are from the BME community. How are they going to be affected? It's not just the driver. You have drivers' families as well affected in this. We have 3,000 drivers. If you time that by 3, you've got your figures there as well. So there are massive, big implications. And the way you have done the whole of the assessment is that you need to address our concern. We should be at the core of everything you do is around us. You make the decision, which is statutorily you are allowed to, but I think you've got to have regard and consideration for our health and safety and our well-being and to deliver for the trade. I'm very sorry to say this, after 37 years of being in the taxi trade, this is the only time I'm going to say this. This is a failed licensing service. You have failed the taxi trade in Sheffield. It's a shambles. You can't answer telephone. IT is zilch. Enforcement is zilch. Everything you are doing is absolutely poor. And then you are asking for 129% increase, 150% increase in things if I go through the breakdowns. You don't provide any audited account, forensic accounts. And I think you can't put wool over our eyes anymore. You have to stop this. We are asking for a deferment to sit with you, work with you, and plan ahead as well. In the report, it says 1 year and 3 year badge. Where's the 2 year badge gone? Who made that decision? Who made that decision for you to take away the 2 year badge as well? So this report before you, Chair, is very clear. You haven't consulted us properly. I know you got 28 days for you to then put an objection period. We will definitely put an objection period. But I would rather see you guys defer this, meet with GMB, ADCU, Unite, STTA, trade reps to work with you to go through the issues and come back as a united front in a sense of an organization and the trade, which is healthy for us as well. And we also need to budget for advance as well for other years. From 2016 to date, you had no reports, nothing coming to this council. It's not our fault. If you can't get your annual reports in place, don't blame us and then push 129% on the trade. So, in the just summing up this my petition, I ask all the members of this committee to think outside the box and be independent in your decision making, and defer this going forward, and let's work together. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for the petition, Ibra. So I have a prepared answer to that based on the text in your original petition, which is slightly different to what you've just said. You have a copy of that in your hand. A copy of it will also be put on the website. But let me address a few points in particular. Your query about the report being published, the report I was referring to in that meeting we had on the 11th was the report that is in this agenda. Now, as I understand it, this agenda was published on that Thursday. If it wasn't, then we're in some legal difficulty in proceeding this meeting because we have to have agendas published 8 days before the meeting. Can I just get a confirmation this agenda was published correctly in good time? It was, okay. Thank you. The other thing in your comments I just wanted to respond to, you did say that the drivers should be at the core of everything we do in the service, in the licensing service. I don't agree with that. I think the travelling public are at the core of everything we do in the service, and we rely on the drivers. We rely on the drivers to deliver what the travelling public of Sheffield need, and we value what drivers. So, well, let me finish. We value the drivers in delivering that service, and we want to support the drivers, and we want driving a taxi in Sheffield to be a good line of work, a good lifestyle, a good way to earn a living. And we want to support drivers in doing that, but at the core of what we do as a licensing service is support and protect the people of Sheffield and ensuring their ability to get around the city to get to work and leisure and other opportunities. So that's just that's where I'm coming from. So I wanted to respond to that. Now, yes, let me read out some of the prepared answer to the petition because it is so on the question on deferring the report, we had a pre-consultation meeting with trade representatives, including yourself, on the 11th of July. There have been no increases in taxi fees since 2016, despite the costs to operate the light service increasing over the last 8 years. The council is currently subsidising the cost of operating taxi licensing on average of £146,000 per year, based on the last 3 years. Should members of the committee determine to make changes to the current licensing taxi fees on the 19th of July, that's today, in line with legislation, then there will be a 28-day public consultation. During the consultation period, all stakeholders will have the opportunity to make formal representations regarding any proposed changes to the licensing fees. And I will add that then, if you do that, then a further paper will come back to this committee for a decision on, in response to your objections. On the question of making accounts available, the licensing service have worked with finance to establish fees on a full cost recovery basis in line with national regulations. This has been established using a model to identify inputs and project activity to come to a price that recovers all costs in administering the taxi licensing process, including overheads. The memorandum account is split between driver, vehicle and operator to show that no cross-subsidy is happening. This is to ensure compliance with sections 53 and 70 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1976. On your request for an in-depth breakdown, proposed fees are detailed within the report. As stated above, the licensing service have worked with finance to establish fees on a full cost recovery basis. Let me add to that. So the answer is that you're not getting a full cost breakdown today, and neither are members. We've asked further questions, and I'm sure you will ask further questions too. I'm hoping we'll get a more detailed breakdown in time for the report that comes back. Licensing service, the function of licensing is protection of the public. Legislation imposes a statutory duty on the local authority to administer and enforce the legislation as well as the terms and conditions of a licence. We will work with all stakeholders to ensure this duty is carried out effectively. On the question of enforcement, the licensing service undertakes regular enforcement. This includes not only on-street enforcement, but also regular compliance checks as required and as required by law and the statutory standards such as DBS, DVLA and medical checks. In the period of 1st of April 23 to 31st of March 24, the licensing service has issued 304 warnings, issued 1,138 defects, dealt with 110 taxi-specific complaints, issued 240 DBS suspensions and reviewed 27 driver licences. On the question of IT, taxi licensing uses a nationally recognised database system which is also utilised by other local authorities around the country. There aren't regular failures of the system, however, the customer-facing experience of using the system could be improved, and therefore a review of the online information, advice and guidance is underway as part of the Digital Transformation Programme of Activity, which is a council programme. The focus is on improving the customer experience through reviewing all the information we have online, website, online forms and policy documents. The content is being reviewed and rewritten in places so that it is easier to understand, up to date, and will provide clearer pathways to enable licence holders to better self-serve. The online application system, big changes being phased out with a move towards council-supported systems. The trade will be invited to test new systems before release. Let me add, I mean, I've been pushing the council's the IT offer to include the support for taxi drivers and taxi licensing within the digital transformation the council is trying to do across a number of services to move more of the offer online and place less burden on people to access those things. Stanithworth Road. The reception at Stanithworth Road is still open. It's now open on an appointment-based system for those who require face-to-face assistance or wish to collect documents. In the last 12 months, we have handled over 600 face-to-face appointments, answered 20,000 phone calls and processed 3,500 licence applications. We are working on self-service options for customers so that they can do more online to make applying for licences quick and easy. We are aware that neighbouring South Yorkshire licensing services do not have dedicated licensing reception and instead offer pre-arranged appointments at a centralised office. On the request for a breakdown of officers, direct staffing and other council services provide support and input, including human resources, finance, legal, digital and ICT, as well as corporate services such as licensing and waste and street scene committees. These have been factored into the cost of running the service costs. The licensing service has a chief licensing officer, policy and strategy officers, enforcement officers and hub admin and support officers. On savings achieved from Hub 1 point service delivery, developing the hub has provided resilience in the licensing service that wasn't in place previously. Now, when there are staff absences through ill health, critical work can be supported by staff from other teams in the hub. For example, certain tasks are undertaken by officers outside of the licensing hub to allow for the continual processing of taxi, badge and plate applications in order to meet deadlines within the month. This extends to providing phone cover when staff levels within the team are reduced to unforeseen absence. On consultation, a pre-consultation meeting was held with trade representatives, ADCU, STTA and GMB on the 11th of July, which you and I were at. The full consultation period will run from 1st of August. Should the Waste and Street Scene Committee approve the report to initiate consultation and runs 26th of August, then any feedback will be considered in a further report before any fees are confirmed. And finally, a full equality impact assessment has been undertaken and results are included in the published report. Thank you for your petition. So we now move to questions. The first question is from Sheffield Action on Plastic. I understand they're not here, is that right? They're not here? Okay, so they will get a written answer. The second question is from Lee Ward. Lee, again, you may not have had time to look at it, but you have been given a copy of the prepared answer. I hope that's helpful. Okay, well, please go ahead, introduce yourself and put your question.
Good morning, committee. My name is Lee Ward and I represent the Sheffield licensed drivers who are members of Unite the Union. Why has this report been put to the committee and how can you possibly vote on a report that is so lacking with detail? The report mentions the case law of Raymond v Wakefield, and yet the report does not supply the income and expenditure for the bank details of each of the 4 licences as required by the case of Raymond v Wakefield. The report mentions the case law of Hemming v Westminster, yet fails to give a pre- and post-cost breakdown of each licence fee in the report. While there's been an amendment, I will get back to that. West Suffolk Council give a complete and transparent breakdown of each licence fee, including how many minutes are taken on verifications, such as DBS, and the right to work, how many minutes to process and issue a licence, inspection of premises, staff travel time, and so on. All this is broken down into the cost depending on what band of pay a member of staff is on. Yet all we get is a figure that has no supportive documentation or evidence. Why? Why are there no details in what the licensing service has done for the past year to support the 170,000 that the state is required to run the department for taxi licensing alone? Why do drivers not have an option of a 2-year licence when a driver may not be able to afford a 3-year licence? Why do operators not have an option of a 2, 3 or 4-year licence if they also cannot afford to pay a 5-year licence? Why are operators banded up to 50 cars in the first band when 55 of the 73 licences have 15 or less cars and 50 of those 55 are one-man bands? As much as this goes against every fibre of my body, we also have to consider that this could be the straw that breaks the proverbial camel's back. This potential rise in cost could quite easily see licensees migrate to Wolverhampton, where the driver and vehicle licences would cost just £125 for the vehicle a year, £98 for a 3-year badge, and the option of the vehicle being up to the age of 10 years for its first licence and not 4-year like Sheffield will have next year, saving around £12,000 when purchasing the next vehicle. Also, no permanent signage, as Sheffield is obviously aiming for. These savings would also include test fees and much lower insurance premiums. The operator licence will be just £500 for a 5-year. The trade has no support in fighting cross-border to protect both the driver's income or the public safety from the licensing department or this council. And if you want to implement these kind of increases in licence fees, then that has to change, and change very quickly. Defer this decision today until a more detailed report is presented. The late inclusion of the appendix to item 10, I wish to ask the additional questions at the committee hearing today. Was this appendix rushed because the deficit and surplus amounts do not add up? If anything, they are the wrong way around as I read them. Page 1 has driver licensing at a cost of £266,725 with a generated income of £267,043. That equates to a profit of £318, yet the data shows a deficit of £317. In fact, the whole of the first chart shows expenditure as a profit and income from fees as a loss. Why is that? The next set of data on page 1 shows that the post cost for a driver licence at £70, regardless of the licence being for 1 or 3 years. Does this mean that the licence is only enforced for the first year and not the other 2, that it will be enforced? The post cost for a 1-year operator's licence for up to 50 vehicles is £64. Yet the 5-year licence post cost is £2,537 or £507 per year over its 5-year term. Again, why? On page 2, I have to assume that the total planned activities regarding the enforcement exercise, but it doesn't explain what this is or what costs are associated with it. However, it says that 1,030 will be taken against driver's licences and 1,725 will be taken against vehicle licences and just 35 against operator licences, which I'll get back to shortly. If they are checking enforcement activity against vehicle licences, then surely they would check the driver's licence at the same time. Or is the report so vague that this information is not readily available to the licensees or the committee to decide upon? Only 35 suggested enforcement activities are planned for operators' licences. Why? Drivers can only do what operators allow them to do. After all, a few operators are easier to force than a lot of drivers. And the vehicle, which is exactly why an operator's licence was introduced into legislation back in 1976. And due to cross-border hiring being as rife as it is today, it's clear to see that operators have had little or no enforcement carried out on them or their systems. The additional information is still very poor and lacking from full transparency. We as a trade request that this report is deferred by this committee until a full, detailed and transparent report is put forward, as it should have been from the start.
Thank you for your question. So, on your supplementary questions, obviously I haven't had an advance notice of those. Stay if you like. I mean, you will get. We can't actually chat, so maybe go and sit down. So, just to say, yes, your supplementary questions, I've not had advance notice of those, and I can't answer them from here. I will ask that licensing officers answer those in presenting their report when we come to it. Is that going to be possible? Yeah, okay, thank you for that. So to go back to the questions you did give notice of, obviously some of the answers do repeat items that responded to the petition, particularly the comments on the lack of detail of the reports. I mean, you've got the full answer you've been given there, but I think that is repetitive to what I gave to Ibra. And again, on many of your points, that answer is repeated. Moving down, the question of the deficit. So, £172,564 is the deficit of the taxi licensing service for the financial year 2023-24. That is not for the licensing services support, that is money that has been coming in from the rest of the council's budgets. So, yeah.
The report doesn't explain any of this.
Yeah, well, this is what a deficit in the licensing service accounts means. That is money that the drivers are not paying. That legally we should be seeking to recover from them. That is the position that the report is intended to rectify. Yeah, no, you're quite right, of course. Thank you. Can you let me give the answers now? On the question of the 2-year badge, licensing service records show that applications for 2-year new and renewal driver licences have accounted for around 10% of all driver applications over the last 6 years. Given that this is a relatively low demand, we believe that consolidating the number of available licence lengths will simplify the application process for both applicants and the staff who administer these services. The service also continues to see a small minority of applicants paying their incorrect licence fee on application, necessitating refunds or additional payments, which increase both time and administrative costs. By removing the 2-year licence, we aim to reduce the risk of this. Furthermore, the change also brings Sheffield City Council into line with most other core local authorities who do not offer a 2-year driver licence, ensuring consistency and efficiency in our operations. We understand that affordability is a concern, and we're continually looking for ways to make our services as accessible as possible. However, based on the information available, we believe this to be the best approach moving forward. Obviously, you're free to make submissions on that point in your response to the consultation. Why do operators not have the option of a 2, 3 or 4-year licence if they cannot afford a 5-year one? Licensing services records show that applications for 3 and 4-year new and renewal private hire operator licences have accounted for around 18% of all private hire operator licences over the last 6 years. Given the low demand for these licences, we believe that consolidating the number of available licence lengths will simplify the application process for both applicants and staff who administer these applications. While licensing service records do indicate some demand for 2-year new and renewal private hire operator licences over the last 6 years, take-up of the 1-year and 5-year licences remains strong. By removing the option of a 2, 3 and 4-year licence, this again brings Sheffield City Council into line with most of the core local authorities who also do not offer these licence lengths. On the question of the banding, the up to 50 car band in particular, the proposed changes to the private hire operator bandings are designed to create a fairer system for all operators and to enable the service to proportionally charge fees based on the size of each private hire operator. By grouping operators with up to 50 cars in the first banding, the service can more accurately reflect the administration and enforcement costs associated with these operators. It is important to note that the administration and enforcement time and costs for all private hire operators with fewer than 50 vehicles are relatively similar, regardless of whether an operator has 10 or 40 vehicles. This uniformity in costs justifies the banding structure, ensuring that all operators within this range contribute fairly to the regulatory expenses incurred by the service. Consequently, this new banding approach enhances fairness and ensures a more balanced distribution of costs among small, medium and large-sized private hire operators. Thank you for your questions. The next questioner is Abdul Rahim. Is Abdul Rahim here? If not, you'll get a written answer. Sorry, it's not strictly a point of order, as you're not a member of the committee.
Because, Chair, what I'm hearing from you is that you have predetermined this decision. Because what you are saying, we're going to go into consultation when the trade is asking for a deferment. And to me, you're reading from a hymn sheet that this is a chorus on a Sunday. This isn't a chorus on a Sunday. You have made a predetermined decision when you should be minded to hear what we are saying to you. And then, because the officers should be answering our question, we're asking you as a trade for a deferment. And I want to ask the legal officer on this, not yourself, because you are reading from a sheet and have made a predetermined decision. You need to all confirm, have you made a political decision, or have you come with a free mind to make a decision here? Because we as a trade are saying, defer this and work with us. Because I can see you're not doing that.
Okay, thank you for your comment. I will ask you to sit down now because you have had your say. I will allow the legal officers to respond to your point because it's a perfectly valid point. I will say, although I referred to a consultation, that was not an indication that the decision has been predetermined. It was simply an indication that if the decision is made, there will be a consultation. Rob.
Sorry, Chair, could you ask me the question that you're asking me?
I think Ibrahim was challenging the question that was querying whether the decision on the report on item 10 was predetermined based on my comments a moment ago about referring to a consultation.
The rules on predetermination are that, and that's separate to commentary that may have been read off, are that members are able to express a view on a matter, provided when it comes to the item, they conscientiously consider the report and the debates that may ensue on that item and that they keep an open mind in relation to that. So I didn't hear anything that alarmed me particularly, but Chair, if you're confident you can keep an open mind when it comes to the item, then it is entirely within your discretion and decision to carry on and participate in the decision.
Thank you for that. Minesh, did you indicate?
Yeah, I just wondered if it's helpful to clarify that the questions is a different item to the decision itself, and that's why we're not talking about whether or not to defer, because we're just answering questions from the public at this stage. Yeah,
I don't think that is actually the issue, but yes, we will come to the item very soon. I'm minded to move it up the agenda, considering the number of people who are here. So the next question is Abdul Rahim. Is Abdul here? If not, he will get a written answer. Fourth question, Arshad Mahmood. Is Arshad here? I don't believe Arshad is here. No, so he will get a written answer. And that concludes the item on public questions and petitions. I am minded, as I said a moment ago, to move to item 10 in the agenda next, bearing in mind there are a lot of people here who I'm sure would rather be earning a living driving their taxis. So shall we do that? Members agree that we do that? I'm seeing hands. I don't think I should take them. No, because this is now the question. The public engagement section of the meeting is over, and we're now into the decision-making section of the meeting. So, can I ask the officers for item 10, please to come and present the report? Thank you. It's right. So just in case anybody didn't hear that, the gentleman was saying he did put a question in. Do we know what's happened to that question?
Multiple people entered statements that weren't actually questions and circulated to members but didn't answer the question on the committee.
Right. licensing officer to come and present the report for item 10, please. So I think that we've just had a quick discussion about that. There has been some confusion. Obviously, we've all had a huge number of emails expressing views on this point. Myself in particular, I've had a very large number of emails making very similar points to those made in the question and the petition. In terms of emails that have come to Democratic Services to put questions in this committee, it's not clear that in all cases that they've actually been questions rather than statements. I don't know if that's happened in your case. So what's your name, sir? Right, can you... Okay, well just give us a moment. Did you get the name? Can you spell your name, please? Sorry. Yeah. I didn't. Sorry. Can you do that again? The spelling again. Alpha Zulu, Alpha Romeo. Yeah. Alpha Foxtrot. Sierra. Alpha Romeo. Yeah. Okay. we're just checking that.
Chair, with your leave, speak. So to the gentleman in the public gallery. So Democratic Services officers, I understand, received this and reviewed it and acknowledged receipt. Because having read it, officers considered that it was a statement rather than a question, it was concluded that it would be better to circulate this to members of the committee, which it has been. So members of the committee have been provided with the gentleman's statement. But it is not a question strictly in accordance with the rules, so is not able to be put as a question. So we would wish to apologise to the gentleman that wasn't communicated clearly to him, but it has been circulated, please be assured, to the members of the committee so that they have seen it. So firstly, apologies for not having confirmed that to you, but please be assured it has been circulated to the members of the committee. Chair.
Sorry, I've just seen the circulation of this. It hasn't gone to the whole committee. I'm going to read out the statement that you sent because the whole committee hasn't had it. Although I think it's an error. The Waste and Street Scene Department. This is the statement received from Mr. Afsar. The Waste and Street Scene Department is to discuss a significant increase in licence fees during their meeting on Friday, July the 19th, 2024. The proposed raise is causing concern among our members as they believe it is unjustifiably high. One of the main criticisms is the lack of transparency in the fee structure, with no detailed breakdown or financial analysis provided to explain the rationale behind the increases. Without proper documentation and accountability from the licensing department, it is difficult for GMB trade unions to support such a substantial raise in fees. The lack of information raises questions about the fairness and validity of the proposed increase, leaving many wondering if there are real alternative solutions that could be explored to achieve the department's financial goals without burdening our members with excessive fees. So, it seems that the current cost of living has not been considered. We, the GMB, do not agree to the high increase in fees and ask the proposal to be deferred. I'll refer it. Yeah, okay. Thank you. So, because that is a statement, I think, members of the committee have now heard it. I hope that satisfies, you, Mr. Afsal. Can I ask licensing officers, obviously, to present the report and obviously to respond to some of the additional points that have been raised during that part of the meeting? I'm particularly conscious that a number of there have been a number of representations on the issue of the evidential basis for this proposed increase. So do please focus on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just to introduce myself, so I'm Craig Harper, Chief Licensing Officer, the Licensing Service. Would you like other members to introduce themselves?
Ben Brailsford, Assistant Director of Street Scene Services.
Daniel Parlett, Licensing Strategy and Policy Officer.
Adrian Hart, Finance Business Partner.
Thank you, members. So this report is a proposal to increase fees for the following licences within taxi licensing. So the driver's licence, hand-carriage vehicle licence, private hire licences, private hire operator licences, and other miscellaneous items that we deal with within the taxi licensing service. We're recommending that the fees and charges for the years 24-25, as set out in Appendix C, be approved for public consultation as per the statutory requirements and to take effect from the 1st of October, should no objections be received. Some background information. So the legislation allows us to charge for fees of the grant of licences for those items I just mentioned, and the cost of issue and administration can be recovered from in driver's licence fees. We're fully aware that fees should be set in a consistent way and must be transparent. We cannot make a profit from licence fees, and there must be a carry forward of any surplus. Fees should reflect the actual resources used in processing and issue of each licence type, and costs should be recovered from the individual systems, as some of the trade reps have made reference to. Over the past 3 years, the income from the licensing service has averaged around £800,000 with an expenditure of £946, resulting in an average overspend of £146,000. In regards to the last financial year, the overall costs were just over £1 million with an income of £829,000, resulting in a deficit of £172,000. Licence fees were last reviewed in 2016, and despite an increase in service costs during this period, additional costs have not been passed on to the licensees and applicants. Service costs have risen year on year, and an increase in statutory requirements have placed further pressures on the licensing service in regards to the checks we need to undertake. A review of the online information, advice and guidance is underway as part of the digital transformation programme that focuses on customer experience through reviewing all the information we have online, so that's website, online forms and our policy documents, and we are currently reviewing and rewriting such information, providing clearer pathways to enable licence holders to better self-serve. Information on estimated costs by licence type and the fee can be found at Appendix B. Salary costs and non-pay expenditure are also included as costs of the service. Fees are based on the hourly rate, and the hourly rate is based on the pay scale for each individual officer who undertakes that particular task. Officer time does remain the single highest cost of the licensing service, allocating more time administering and enforcing the licensing function than in previous years. That's in regards to the statutory requirements that now mandate us to undertake cash NR3 checks, 6-monthly DBS checks, and we also now have to undertake tax conditionality checks. In order to cover the increased cost of the service, a fee proposal is attached to Appendix C. Just to make reference to some of the other questions and the information within the report, so we currently have over 30 different licence options covering driver vehicle and private hire operators, and we're looking to consolidate some of those options. So driver licences will be reduced to 1 or 3 years instead of 1, 2 and 3, and private hire operator licences will remove the 2, 3 and 4 year option. And the current bandings have been altered from under 50 to over 50, so 1 to 50, 51 to 100, 101 to 250 and 251 vehicles plus. In addition, the fees charged for new and renewal driver and vehicle licence applications will be set at the same level due to the officer time spent in processing and enforcing that particular licence type. An equality impact assessment has been undertaken. That can be found at Appendix D. We do recognise that an increase in fees will have a direct disproportionate impact on sex, race and religion due to what is known to be the high prevalence of male and Asian, British and Pakistani drivers in Sheffield. Also a financial impact due to day-to-day cost increases such as fuel, maintenance and insurance, and the requirements of the Clean Air Zone may have had some impact on taxi drivers also. Some of the alternative options that can be considered is not approving the proposed fees, so this will require continued subsidy or reductions in quality and timeliness of the service. Approving a lower licence fee will require continued subsidy, and phasing in of the new level of fees over a 2 or 3 year period is an option. This would reduce the burden on licensees but would require continued subsidy. So the reasons for the recommendations today, members, is to increase fees as proposed, and that will ensure the licensing service recovers its reasonable cost in administering and ensuring compliance with the licensing regime. Thank you, members.
Chair, can I just add to that opening paragraph? I think it's important for us to say that obviously the decision here today is about whether to begin consultation. Beginning consultation allows us to hear the trade's voice truly and be able to kind of respond and reflect on that in terms of any further report that then comes back to finally set the agreed fees. So I think it's really important that we give stakeholders and trade the opportunity to have their voices heard, and by starting consultation, that's the way we're going to do this. So I just wanted to make that point.
If I could just probably, update on the consultation. I think it was mentioned in the response to IBRA's petition that would start a consultation from the 1st of August. We're looking to undertake a more comprehensive consultation on the information we've received, so it might be a few days or a week later than that proposed in the petition.
All right, thank you. Minesh.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks all. Just wanted to follow up on that final point, Ben. So if in the consultation people ask for a 2-year option or anything else, could that be then considered and factored into a future report?
We'll need to consider anything that comes back in through that consultation and provide members then with what we've received in consultation, our recommendation, then ultimately members will be able to decide on what they wish to do based on that information in a further report.
Sorry, a couple of things out. Fraser's questions. First, I think if this goes out to consultation, I think one of the key things that people have asked for and have always asked for, I'm showing my age by saying I can remember the last fees report and similar comments being made. What people want to know is, what they get for that fee. I pay that money, what do I get for it? So I think, they can then make a more informed choice on whether they think that's fair. So that'd be really helpful if that could be done. And the other thing I'd like to say is, I consider myself very lucky in Sheffield that if I get a Sheffield licensed taxi driver, I'm guaranteed they've got advanced driving, that they've got great knowledge of the city, that they've got customer service skills, that they've got safeguarding and disability awareness. I'm guaranteed that if they turn up in a Sheffield licensed vehicle, it's a newish vehicle, it's of a high standard, it's regularly checked, and I'm going to be safe. And I don't know if we could do a bit more to promote that. We like to sing what we do well in Sheffield. Well, we expect and we get high standards from the drivers. And if we could promote that and maybe encourage people to ask for and use Sheffield taxis whilst, we try and get legislation changed regarding out of town and cross-border working, I think that'd be helpful. And I'll leave it to that, Chair. Thank you.
Yes, please respond to that.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Barker. I think two really good points to raise there. We've already heard people want further detail than what's currently provided in this report in terms of that consultation, and we're in the process of reviewing that and providing further detail. So if the committee chooses to go to consultation, we will provide further detail around the financial breakdown. On the point around promoting the service better and the benefits of getting in a Sheffield licensed cab, I think all licensing officers here would completely agree with that point. We work really hard to make sure that the services that we're providing through the licensed service are of a high standard and we're keeping the people of Sheffield safe. I'd certainly welcome that, and we will go away and talk to our communications team about what options we can put together.
Mark. Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. 4 parts, I'm afraid. So the first one is, can you just confirm this? I think what I'm reading in the report is that the service isn't viable without the subsidy. So could you just confirm that? And then a couple of things coming out of what David just said. So I think one of the public questions makes reference to the high number of one-man band operators, and I suspect there are two-man bands as well. And I'm sure that will, if the committee takes this forward, that will come out in the consultation. But it seems to me that there's a reasonable question there. I'm not a taxi driver myself, but there must be quite a difference of approach to one man operating their own car and someone working for a company with 6, 7, 8. 2 leading on from David. So we've got a very high standard here, and I wouldn't want to cast aspersions on people who are badged with other authorities, but I suspect some of them are not quite as high. So can we make clear, particularly as a result of the increase, what enforcement can we do for people badged elsewhere, and will that be the maximum amount of enforcement that we're legally permitted? And then I suppose leading on from the breakdown of costs, how will the service improve as a result of the increase if the increase happens? I think it's really important that we make that clear for people who are thankfully choosing to be badged in Sheffield, what they're getting out of that in terms of improvements.
I can come back on some of those points, certainly, Councillor. I'll take them in kind of the order you referenced, and my colleagues may need to come in with more information as well. So confirming the service is viable. So as I mentioned in the report, there's a deficit of £170,000 last year, so we need to recoup that just to break even. So we're still a viable service, but to be viable we need subsidy from other council sources, so whether that's through taxpayer money, council tax, through reserves. I don't really know how that £170,000 is kind of subsidised to the service, but we are a viable service still with continued subsidy. We do have a high number of one-man bands in terms of private hire operators. What we've tried to do is increase the number of bandings. So currently we have 0 to 50 and 50 plus, but we recognise there's some large operators in Sheffield, such as Visa and Uber and Bolt. They take on a lot of drivers, a lot of vehicles. So we tried to look at increasing the bands to take account for those larger operators, but keep the 0 to 50 for the smaller operators. But we do recognise there are one-man bands. So other bandings that come out in the consultation can be looked at in terms of bringing a further report back. High standards to make in terms of enforcement. So it's difficult this because we can get authorised officer status from different authorities. However, the fees we take as a service is to enforce the licensees that we licence. So to take away and enforce vehicles from other authorities will take away from the enforcement on our licensees. So high influx of Wolverhampton vehicles, we're fully aware, and other authorities. We do take enforcement action, but we report those issues to that relevant authority for them to take what action they deem appropriate. And just to move on to the breakdown of costs and improvements to the service. So we're always looking to improve the service, and we're currently part of the digital transformation project as well. So we're looking at increasing, getting rid of big change, which is the online portal to make applications. We realise it's not fit for purpose, and it was a short-term fix. So that is going, that's been phased out. We're looking to use council-supported forms. We're getting a rewrite of the whole website so people can better self-serve, and just making it easier for licensees to contact us. So there'll be more self-serve options, but the reception will still remain open for appointment-based help if necessary.
Thank you. So.
Thank you, Chair. I think some of my questions have already been answered in there. So I was pleased to hear that you intend, as I understand it, to provide that additional information about the costings and where those numbers are come from. I think that's really important. I think if we could have that at the earliest opportunity, assuming that you know, if we go ahead today, then obviously we will be, I think it's pretty certain we're going to be coming back to this. I am a bit confused about myself, which is why I'm asking for that extra information, because looking in Appendix C at the proposed fees, I mean, one thing that struck me was straight away that the 5-year option, for example, for operators, for the smallest level of operator, the charge is nearly 5 times that for 1 year. But for the largest, it's less than 2 times that for 1 year. And somehow that doesn't feel fair. So I think some additional explanation of why we've got those numbers, and I think it is possibly worth, it seems right that you've looked at increasing the number of bandings for the operators, but I do wonder whether we actually should have something that's smaller than 50, or whether that's possible. So yeah, I suppose what I'm asking for is some more information both for the drivers themselves and also for ourselves when this comes back, which it will do one way or another, just so that we can make a more open decision based on the maximum amount of information. Thank you.
Yeah, we're working with our finance business partner to provide more financial information, probably during the consultation and when the report comes back to committee, so you can make a better informed decision. All fees have been worked out on a fully cost recovery basis, so we're not looking for any more subsidy from any other council services or reserves. But yeah, if more information is required, we will put that hopefully during the consultation and to you as members if a report comes back.
Mary.
Thank you. My question is really about the consultation itself and how far and wide it will go. I mean, a lot has been mentioned a few times here about the customer as well and what they quite rightly expect from Sheffield taxi drivers and how then we would promote that amongst customers. So just how far who will you consult with? Obviously taxi drivers, but who else out there?
So there's a legal requirement to consult, and it's a bit old-fashioned, but we have to put an advert in the local paper, which we'll do, and then an advert in the town hall, so we'll do our legal obligations. But we're also looking to go a bit wider, so we'll use the Gov Delivery Service, which is the council's communication service, with a Have Your Say page, which will ask specific questions about the fees and some of the digital offer that we're also looking to introduce as a service. And then so that will go out to all our licensees that have an email address as well, and we'll try and write it out to those that don't. So we're looking to go above and beyond what the actual legal requirement is.
Thanks, Tim.
A couple of things. It's obvious that the committee has expressed the desire to have that we should be having a look at looking at how taxi phones and taxi licences can be issued anywhere. Well, that is something that the new government can do through secondary legislation. So it's not a piece of legislation. So I think that we need to be looking at whether we write to the relevant minister to express our concerns, and I hope other members will support me on that, to say, can you do that as soon as possible through the secondary legislation, through statutory instruments, because that's something that can be done, and it doesn't need primary legislation. And secondly, I agree with Sue. I just think that we need to be looking at what seems to be a slightly lopsided scheme of fees that seems to, I wouldn't say penalise smaller operators, but does disadvantage them.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, I quite agree. I'm going to come in, Tim, on the cross-border issue. I did write to the minister at the request of this committee, the previous minister, the request of this committee a year or two ago. We now have a new transport minister. I think some of us probably know who that is. Actually, can I put you on the spot, Minesh? I'm guessing the best connected member of the committee here with the new government. Do you think we have any chance if we approach the new transport minister with getting something done about cross-border working?
There have been previous comments. I think at this stage, I know there are lots of people who are very supportive, and I think, as a group, we are very keen to see an end to cross-border trade. So I think we will be working closely with the minister.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Well, look, I think you'll have the support here. Obviously, it's not a straightforward. I don't believe it's a straightforward thing, and I wouldn't want to stop drivers from Barnsley or North East Derbyshire or whatever taking their fares across and taking a fare back. But clearly the company problem is it's taking the mick a little bit, isn't it? If half the drivers in the city are licensed in Wolverhampton. So I would welcome that. I'm happy to write again if the committee thinks that would be a good idea, but I think also channels that now exist hopefully will be exploited. And obviously, if Louise Haigh is your MP, write her yourself. You know, I'm sure she will consider that. Christine.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think most of the points I was going to say have already been raised, so I am just going to reiterate some of the points. Yeah, I agree with the cross-border working, and I do think it's important that we try to challenge that as much as we can, because we know, as my fellow councillor said, we do have a very high standard, high-quality taxi service in Sheffield, and we want to maintain that. I think we're proud of that and the work that our drivers do. So, yeah, my main point then is that I support the consultation. I think we really do have to listen to what the drivers are saying. I also support what my Lib Dem councillors have said. Can we look at the banding from 1 to 50 and see if there's any way we can make it easier for the smaller groups of drivers to operate? I think that's very important to look at. And I just want to reiterate, really, it is important that as a council we can cover our costs for the services we provide. But can I ask that we have an annual review so we don't get in this position again where we have to put in big cost rises, and that we at least raise the fees with inflation every year so we're not, you know, putting this burden on taxi drivers unexpectedly.
Just to say, we can't necessarily raise fees by inflation because inflation might not reflect the costs. If costs haven't gone up by inflation, then we can't legally raise fees by inflation. So that's the problem with doing that. We do have to do an exercise like this every time we want to raise fees legally. I'm getting nods from officers on that. But yeah, points are well made. Points are well made. Was there a question to officers there? Yes, Ben.
I think just to confirm, just to say as officers, yes, we expect to do an annual review in terms of fees and charges. It's really important. We can't over-recover. So actually, you know, if we can make savings in the service, they can be passed on to drivers' fees, and fees also lowered, not just all increased, because it is about that legal requirement to not over-recover. So just be really clear on that. If we can make savings elsewhere, those will be passed on to drivers through fees as well.
Thank you. Right, I think almost everybody's had a go. I have a number of points I want to raise at this point. So I do want to emphasise the point about having more detailed information on the costings in the consultation. And I think, you know, it's unfortunate we didn't have them for this meeting, but in order to satisfy, I think in order to give the drivers a fair chance in responding to the consultation, to give them the chance to challenge where they think the figures might be wrong, we need to show them some more detailed figures. We need to give them something to challenge in some detail. So with that understanding, obviously we have the recommendations in front of us, but I want it to be clear to everybody in the room that the consultation that goes out will include sufficient information for drivers to challenge if we agree to do that we don't put out something without sufficient information. Sorry, Sue.
Sorry, I'm just after a little bit of extra clarity. If we're giving out extra information, which I think we should, does that mean that the consultation period, I think, is 28 days? Have I read that right? Possibly, should that not start after that information is available? I'm just slightly worried that if
I think that's what I understood when the officer said that the start may be delayed of the consultation because it's delayed so that a detailed breakdown can be prepared. And I would like it to be circulated to members of the committee before we launch it as well, just so that we're satisfied there is enough there for the drives to go on. Yeah, I appreciate it's an issue with school holidays as well, but if we're not starting at the beginning of August, then maybe, you know, the consultation will still be live when people come back. Is that agreed in principle amongst members and officers here that we get to see the detailed breakdown before the consultation is launched? Okay, thank you for that. On the So there was Craig, you mentioned in presenting the report the options of staging increases over time, and I can see the logic to doing that. It's 8 years in one go we're attempting to do here. It's down as in the alternative options considered section of the report. I think that's what we're referring to. I mean, is it fair to say that normally when you take a report and you agree with the recommendations, you're rejecting the alternative options, and that's not necessarily really what we're doing here, is it? Because we're going to consultation on that. So there is still scope, particularly bearing in mind the cost of living arguments have been made, there's still scope for staging later on. Okay, I'm getting nods on that, so I'll take that. Thank you. Next item, concerns have been raised about A, signage, and B, vehicle ages. We've had discussions, I'm aware, that we want to look again at the signage issue. I don't see it on the work programme, unless it's very small print, I may have missed it. So we've not taken the work programme item yet, but can we agree now to have vehicle signage on the work programme for this year, and sooner rather than later? And I think we've agreed that in principle in briefings, but we haven't put it on the work programme. Is that, the members happy to put signage on? Vehicle ages is possibly slightly thornier. I'm looking to members, I don't know if anyone wants to come in on this, because if it is true that you can take a 10-year-old vehicle and get it licensed in Wolverhampton, what are we really gaining by having 5 years, moving the existing policies moves to 4 years for a new registered taxi in January? Is that right? Craig.
Shall I come in on the point on vehicle age limits? I'll take it. So the vehicle age limit is reducing to 4 for diesel and petrol vehicles from January. That was a decision of the Waste and Street Scene Committee last year or the year before. Hybrid and electric vehicles, you can license a vehicle up to 7 years and license it for a longer period of time. And that decision was taken due to council's aim for a net zero city. So we've got different priorities as a council to probably what other councils have as well. So it's taken action that will help the trade, and we realise there's different policies all over the country, but also taking action that supports the corporate policies of the council as well. Those two can't be, you can't differentiate between.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Craig, but I mean, if the consequence of us saying 4 years is that somebody switches to Wolverhampton and gets a 10-year-old vehicle, then we're not really helping the clean air or anything, are we? It's... Thank you. Sue.
I was just going to suggest that maybe we include that comment or question in our letter to the Minister, and just point out that as one of the discrepancies, and let us see what information we get back, because I do want us to have the best taxis we can in Sheffield, but I am very concerned if people can have something of a lower standard vehicle because they register it elsewhere. That doesn't seem fair on either the taxi drivers or indeed on the travelling public.
Yeah, the point is very well made. Well, look, I'm looking around. Minesh, yeah, go on.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, just 2 points. One, I think if individuals wanted to write letters to the Minister, they're welcome to. I think we have a better chain of communication, and I think it's better for us to raise it, not for a letter from this committee. I think there is another point, though, about if we go to consultation, the way the consultation takes place, and I think there's clearly a need for deeper conversations to be had with the taxi trade and taxi drivers. I think, maybe we've heard questions about West Suffolk Council. Clearly there are examples of best practice that might be out there that we want to hear earlier on. I wonder if there's a way we could have, maybe with the LACs, an in-person drop-in consultation event where we can ask more open-ended questions, get more information back to, work towards even co-design of the service.
I think what might be helpful is if we pull together the consultation approach and maybe share it with some members of the committee before we go out to consult. So again, we'll share the information we're going to share around financial breakdowns. We'll share the consultation approach, and you'll have a chance to suggest anything in there. If we go away and have a look at that and come back as part of that with that committee.
Thanks. So my original question is hanging, though. Do we want to add the age limits question to the committee's work programme? Because without prejudging what that might do, to review the age limits in light of circumstances. Minesh.
I wouldn't think so at this stage because I think it needs a deeper conversation with TRC about the impact on clean air as well. I think we should figure out what impact it might have before we consider whether we review it or not.
I don't think that's true. I mean, clean air is not just TRC's business. I don't think you need to go and ask TRC on how to dispose of this committee's responsibilities any more than they need to ask us when they dispose of theirs. So part of the question on vehicle standards is emissions versus age limits. And so what the trade have been asking for, I understand, for quite some time, is to have standards based on emissions only and not on age limits. Yeah. So you know, you may get the age limit. The age limit is a standard we've inherited, which is aimed to simply improve the quality of the fleet in terms of the customer experience. I think it's saying we want to be a city where there are taxis are nice new vehicles and not rusty old bangers, right? That is where that's come from. The environmental thing is a more recent thing, and there is some relationship. New cars tend to be cleaner, but you could just have an emissions-only standard or some sort of hybrid standard, and we moved in that direction 2 years ago when we extended the age limits for hybrid and electric vehicles, and I think that was the right thing to do. And you do see a lot of hybrid private hire vehicles on the streets. So, and my impression is they're really nice vehicles. So, yeah, no, I would like to put it on the work programme. I think I would like to have a look at the age limits question before January, because January is when we're proposing currently to reduce the limit from 5 years to 4. I don't think that has a measurable clean air impact, and if it does, then we can put in a clean air standard, which we probably should put in anyway. How does the committee feel about that? Can we have a look at the age limits? Well, yes, it's a wider review, and obviously we hope we'll get some relief from the minister, you know, the next, sooner rather than later. But yeah, a review of vehicle standards in terms of ages and emissions. Is that what we want to talk? Is that how you want to put it? Would you be happy with that? Yeah. Can we put that on the work programme then? Thank you. So the final question I had, rising out of the conversation, is the question of out-of-town enforcement against out-of-town vehicles. It seems a little bit too complicated to settle right now, but I'm just curious the extent to which, even if we're putting our resources, Sheffield resources, into enforcing against out-of-town drivers, the city is still benefiting from that enforcement. It's not necessarily to the benefit of Sheffield's driver, except that they're part of our community, but it is a benefit to us. And I don't have a proposal or anything, but it just feels to me that this is something that does need to be considered a little bit more carefully. I don't know if you've got, Craig, you can.
It goes without saying that enforcement of out-of-town vehicles has an indirect positive effect on the local licensed trade and the people of Sheffield as well. We do have to be conscious that we don't want to spend all our time enforcing out-of-town vehicles. The better option will be to stop out-of-town vehicles coming and working in districts where they're not licensed predominantly. We all know where most of those vehicles come from, so I think a real push from the council to write to the minister to get this legislation changed, or some legislation in its place. But we do enforce out-of-town vehicles if they're parked on ranks. We can't approach them and speak to them because we're not authorised to do so. We're only authorised to speak with our locally licensed drivers. So we don't know what conditions the conditions of their licence. We don't know what they should and shouldn't be doing. We can't have a bank of conditions from every authority in the country because that just wouldn't be practical. But yeah, we do enforcement. We do pass information on to other councils for them to take action as they deem appropriate, and then we take action against our locally licensed drivers in line with our conditions in Sheffield.
Yeah, that was my next question actually. Do their licence fees pay for the enforcement against out-of-town drivers, or how is that paid for?
Yeah, we don't get any money from any other authorities to carry out enforcement on their vehicles, so we don't proactively go and search their vehicles, but if we're out doing enforcement, we can ask the driver to move on or email the other authority on any issues.
Right, that doesn't, I'm not sure that answers the question. If for the sake of argument, we adopted a policy of hiring an extra 2 people to do just all the Wolverhampton taxis, and that's what they spent all their time doing, right? A, would we, and B, could we legally charge for them to these guys' fees? No, we couldn't. Okay, that's fine. That's what I wanted to know. Okay. Obviously, we're not doing that, but... Okay, thank you for that. I think, well, so, I mean, to my mind, it feels it's an issue that needs further consideration. I'm sorry, I'm going to take more questions to the floor. Maybe we can we bring this, come back to this at licensing steering group or at a briefing, and maybe the taxi forum if members of trade want to discuss it as well. But you know, it feels to me that we need to think about it some more, and maybe we can put it on the work programme subsequent to that. Okay. So I think that's the end of the sort of questions and so on. Do people want to make comments on the proposals, or shall I just summarise the meeting? I'm sorry, I'm not going to take no. Oh, okay. I'm not going to take any more. I mean, we've done questions. We come to the recommendations in the report. I'm not seeing any hands. Yeah, Ben. Yeah.
So, sorry, Chair, it was actually just to refer back to a point you made a little bit earlier on about deferment and what that might mean. I just wanted to be really clear with members of the committee that if we do defer under any other consultation, that will leave us with a subsidy that we would, as a council, need to find ways of addressing that, find other ways of filling that. So I just wanted to be clear when we're talking about step change. And we'll make that clear in any subsequent report as well.
Yes, no, thank you, that's understood. So, I think we've heard from the trade on a number of grounds. I've had a large number of emails, I suspect members of the committee have also had them, talking about cost of living, talking about the service that we're offering them, and then talking about some of these issues we've just been through. And I would like to give some comfort to the trade on all of that, and they have some very fair points. However, I would propose that we go ahead with the fee increase as planned, with go into consultation on the fee increase as planned. These points can be thrashed out more if and when the report comes back to us following that consultation. I am, you know, it is some regret that we don't have a more detailed breakdown of the costs for this meeting, and I wouldn't want to go to consultation without giving the drivers a significantly more detailed breakdown of the cost. And so if that couldn't be established, then I would be minded to defer. But given that that is what the plan is, I'm proposing that we go ahead with the recommendations as agreed on page, as proposed on page 58 of the agenda. Are members in agreement with that? I'll take silence and dissent. Thank you, that's agreed. Thank you. Thank you everybody for attending, and thank you for making your submissions. The date of the consultation will be advised to the trade as soon as it's known, I hope. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you everybody, thank you for attending. We now move back to members' questions. I think it's the next item on the agenda. So, we're about to change the process for members' questions, but this is the last process of the new last regime. Mark, are you with us? Mark? No, Peter, sorry. No, Mark. It's Mark. It is Mark. Yes, I'm sorry. I was looking at Peter and talking to Mark. These are your questions. Yes. So I don't propose to actually read this out because you've had a copy of the answers, haven't you? Yes. I don't actually think they are wasting the street scene matters, as it turns out. You've had answers anyway. I think they actually belong to other committees. So I propose to leave it at that, if you're happy.
I'm fine with that, Chair. I just think that the second one, questioning about the discharge into the waterways around Yorkshire Water, I think is part of a wider issue about this committee being about the services and the approach done in Sheffield rather than just the services that we provide or that we contract. And I think that issue of Yorkshire Water discharging baby wipes, nappies into the waterways is part of that wider issue.
No, I quite agree. And we did have Yorkshire Water present to this committee, I think, December, where we asked them about that and alongside a number of other issues as part of the wider remit you talk about. No, quite right. Okay, thank you for that. Next on the agenda is the work programme. Amanda.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the work programme is at page 19 of the agenda pack. There isn't anything in particular that I want to draw your attention to. Obviously, we've got a session later today to discuss, and this will develop as we move into this new year. And obviously, I take the points from the Chair that we've just added in the last item.
Thank you. So, yes, I was hoping to get a work programme planning session with this committee before the first meeting so that we could then discuss the work programme we'd planned. So this is kind of largely an inherited work programme. This afternoon's meeting, I'm conscious that my intention was the whole committee would be invited. I think we've only actually invited the spokespeople. So I think, I don't know if there are views from the floor, but I suggest we go ahead. But please, obviously, members, advise your spokespeople any ideas you have, any suggestions you have in terms of work programme planning. And in fact, come along if you can make it. It's 3 o'clock. I mean, I'm quite happy to have anybody from the committee there. But I appreciate at short notice you probably won't be able to. Sue.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to raise a sort of fairly general point, really, which is the lack of consultation planning in some of the items on the agenda. So I think it is important that when we're looking at updating policies or strategies, sort of rather than the routine, fairly short time things, that we actually put in the consultation plan before we look at the actual item itself. So it was just a general point, Chair, that I do think we need to bear that in mind when we're putting items on the agenda.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think that point's well made. Obviously, many items, such as the one we just had, do have their kind of own statutory consultation built in, but no, it's a good point, thank you. Any other comments on the work programme? Minesh?
Thanks, Chair. I've mentioned one of these in a pre-meet, but just for the public record, I'd like to add an item on amending licensing requirements for nighttime economy businesses to add a duty to help their employees get home safely, in line with Unite the Union's Get Me Home Safely campaign. I know we've previously discussed this and I think it's something that we have a duty of care, or should have a duty of care to do. I think employers are the same. I think I've seen other councils bring this in with a lot of success, and I think it's something that's worthwhile pursuing. Secondly, just a comment actually on the change that we're bringing in a future meeting on fixed penalty offences for environmental offences, or increasing fines for fly tipping. This is a key Labour priority, and I think we know fly tipping is a blight on our communities, and we're very keen to see this brought forward as quickly as possible and put an end to fly tipping.
Thanks. Yes. I don't know if I can ask, if I put you on the spot on the first item. Jane, do you want to? Are you able to comment on that? Take me home item. On the second item, the fixed penalty notices, that is on the work programme for the September meeting. So yes. Jane, thanks.
Hi, thanks for the question. In terms of what you're requesting in terms of making it a public, not duty as such for nighttime economy licence holders to get their staff home, it's not anything within legislation that we can enforce on, but we can certainly consider it by adding it into our local policy. So there's national legislation that we all have to make everyone operate under the Licensing Act, but every council adopts their own local policy. So it's how we basically do it within our city. As it's not in legislation, it's not something we can make them do, if you know what I mean. But obviously, like we said, with duty of care to the nighttime economy staff, exactly, I agree with you. it would have to go for full consultation along with the licensing act policy is due for renewal next year, so I think it's got to be in place by 2026, the next new policy. So that'll be being reviewed next year, like we have done with the gambling policy today, this year.
So is that something best done as part of that process rather than as a separate?
Yeah, it would have to be done because if for us to be able to ask that sort of responsibility of licence holders, we can't just ask them to do that because there's nothing legally that states that they have to. We can't enforce something that's not legally required. As it would, if we decide to do that as a council, to ask them to provide that safe journey home or whatever linked in with stakeholders and such, we would have to implement it into a policy, which would have to be done under full policy review.
Okay, is that
right?
satisfying?
Well, I guess I'd like to see us explore this year the ways of councils like Newcastle, I know, have brought it into their licensing policy to see if there are ways we could do it earlier and if not do the work in advance.
I can
so that
certainly put that on our radar, definitely.
Thank you.
No problem.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you, James, for jumping in. Tim.
I was going to say is fly tipping. Yeah, it'd be good because I mean, 5 of the 9 of us who were asking about fly tipping, we went to the Veolia presentation. Unfortunately, none of the Labour members could make it when we were asking about fly tipping. It is something that's very important for the committee, and we need to look at it.
Quite agree, Mary.
Quite a specific item really regarding fly tipping. The bane of my life in Darnell is these clothing recycling bins that appear on our residential streets, collecting lots of fly tipping around them, and they just appear. My concern is, well, apart from the blight, is that they claim that they're charities, but I'm not sure how much of their profit goes to charities. But have we got a policy for removing them? And I'm not sure we've got a very clear policy that allows Amy or ourselves to remove them and then contact the companies and ask them to collect them from us for a fee. I know that it has been done at times, but I don't know that there is a policy regarding that.
That's a really good question. I'm looking in the corner at all the officers, deciding who to put on the spot for this one. I can see Neil and Ian looking at each other.
So, in terms of a formal policy, I'll say no. The way that, obviously, I work with Veolia, and Veolia manage the established bring sites in the city. And what happens there is where a rogue bank comes on, we've had them in the past, DMAC being one of them, where the charitable credentials weren't there, and they were prosecuted. And in that respect, we notified the provider, say, you don't have permission on this land to have the bank there, you need to shift them within X period of time, I think it's 2 to 4 weeks. When they weren't removed, we then removed them. We got a commercial arm of Veolia to actually shift them and put them into storage, and then they were collected from there, so we actually got them off the site. So really, on council land, it needs council's permission to actually locate the bins there. We do have a very informal agreement from previous discussions with Veolia when these issues have popped up on non-bring site land to say, can you get the commercial arm to shift these bins once we've followed the due process? And they've done it on an ad hoc basis a couple of times, but there is a cost attributed to that. So although we've done it previously, there is the possible, if we start doing it in more numbers and more coming through, Veolia may look at us and say, well, there needs to be a payment made there, but we haven't got to that point as yet because it's not been on our radar to progress that. So I mean, Ian, I don't know if you need anything to add to that, but if we need to progress something from our side to look at it, we can do.
Thanks. I don't want to spend too long on this because it's a discussion of the work programme. If there's an item in this for the work programme, then obviously we'll consider it. Ian, did you want to respond as well?
I think just to say that if there's a very particular problem with the site, we'd obviously look at that and look at what levers we've got on an individual basis. I mean, there are some issues as part of this broader work we're doing about environmental improvement, how we make it easier to improve your environment. We're starting with some of the top issues, but we will be then moving on to others. You know, so and one of the things, for example, is the little bits of land that have no ownership. which is causing lots of problems because it's leading to costs. Now, sometimes they may be placed on those bits of land. So it's certainly something we can look at as part of that developing piece of work. And the main thing would be to say, and what we're trying to do with the other environmental issues is, if we're not clear and explicit what our policy is, or what our options are, or what the community options are, that we at least make it really explicit and visible so everybody knows what the options are. So as a minimum, I think that's what we'd need to do.
Okay. Mary, would you be satisfied if I just ask officers to bring a briefing on this to the next knowledge briefing, and then we can think about where to take it from there? Brilliant. Thank you. Peter.
Thank you, Chair. I believe before I joined this committee that the committee had voted to support community composting across the city, but I noticed that it's not on the work plan. So I would ask that it is on the work plan. Obviously, we don't know what we can do. We may need an options paper to consider. But I do think it's something that should be on the work plan, community composting for the city.
Yeah, I thought we'd already done it. Neil?
We've launched a subsidised home composting scheme across the city. So residents are able to get a £15 discount on the cost of a home compost bin.
That's not relevant.
Yeah, you're talking about the general sort of public shared facility where people come and compost, so yes. We can put something together in terms of what that offer would look like. We are able to have discussions with people about what support we can provide. I suppose part it's a bit of chicken and egg really, because obviously we need people to contact us to actually have a discussion about it, but then it's also having the information out there so that people come to talk to us about it. So I think there probably is something there. So I think, yeah, maybe again, if we work something up for a future knowledge briefing, then we can bring it to that for discussion.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, are you happy with that? Thank you. Right, okay, let's do that. Right, can we agree the work programme with those? Yeah, thank you. I'll take silence as the end of the meeting, and the work programme is agreed. Thank you all very much. Item 8, final Outturn budget monitoring report. If you want to introduce yourself and the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Jane Wilby, Head of Accounting, and the purpose of the report is to share the final Outturn position for 23-24. The full paper went to the Finance Committee in June, but this was delayed due to the elections. So this is a shortened version for the Policy Committee. We're currently in the process of preparing the Q1 position for 24-25, which will go to Finance Committee in August. Overall, the Council reported an overspend against budget of 15.6 million in 23-24 against a net revenue budget of 497 million, which was a variance of 3%. Overall, we saw some relative stability in the forecast throughout the year. We started at a 17.6 million overspend and showed a 2 million improvement throughout the year. The relative stability in the forecast showed a good commitment across the board from council officers to financial management and realistic estimates of service costs. And the improvement was mainly due to income from our treasury investments, which has provided mitigations for our unfunded overspends for the council. The challenging underlying budget issues remain in children's services, SEN, home to school transport, adults care and wellbeing, and in homelessness services. The housing revenue accounts also suffering from overspends in the repairs service. In the Waste and Street Scene Committee, the budgets were underspent by 900,000 against a net budget of 66.7 million. The forecast was consistent throughout the year and generally good quality financial management and forecasting of council budgets. It's worth noting that Sheffield has 26% less funding per household in real terms than when we compare that to 2010-11, which meant that we had to set in place £47 million worth of savings targets to balance the budget for 23-24. We did report a 78% delivery rate of those savings within the year, but 6.5 were deemed undeliverable and will present a risk to budgets in 24-25, alongside the underlying budget challenges that are outlined in the paper of 26.7 million. We did have some one-off grants and offsets last year, but we still need to work on the core issues that need to be addressed in order to be sustainable going forwards. We were able to manage the overspends by drawing from reserves for the last year, and we have done for the previous 2 financial years, which leaves just 27.6 million to manage our overspends for 24-25. The issues in Sheffield are not unique, and councils across the country are facing similar challenges. We are seeing encouraging signs from the new government, recognising that councils, in order to be able to deliver, it is crucial to have longer-term funding and more financial certainty through longer-term multi-year settlements. We do, by law, have to set a balanced budget, and we're in the process of looking at our medium-term financial strategy for a further 4 years. Pressures on services from increased demand, inflating cost bases and reductions in funding on top of these undelivered savings and issues in underlying budgets are going to make the process even more difficult next year as that gap continues to widen. The committee is asked to note the position for 23-24 and hopefully provide some context towards making policy decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments from Minesh?
Just a comment to see, when across the council there's a very, very difficult financial position, it's really nice to see an underspend of 0.9 thousand. It's a sign to how well run the services, and just congrats to everyone who achieved that.
Thank you. You stole the words out of my mouth. No, we do have the best run committee in council here. Well done to all the officers. I mean, though we have come in under budget, a large part of that, of course, is parking services income, which is I guess is modelled. My concern would be, I don't want to give you any ideas, but given that it was higher this year, is that reflecting the model for next year, or might we get a similar surplus this year?
Yeah, in terms of the forecasting that's happened at the moment, and as we move forward to next year, I think we will expect to see higher income in parking services as a result of some of the things that were happening last year. We do think that there will be a certain decline in income over the course of the year, though, so that has also been built into forecasts. I think as behaviour change and acceptance in terms of behaviour, then we think the income levels may sort of stabilise towards the back end of the year. But yes, it has been built into forecasts for 24-25 and also into the budget position.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, I just wanted to ask. Actually, I want to ask. I'm going to put you on the spot again, Minesh, because I'm enjoying that. All this doom and gloom is surely a thing of the past. Now we have a Labour government, isn't it?
I mean, as members will have heard on Wednesday, we have inherited as a new government a very difficult financial position after 14 years of reckless cuts and reckless spending. I think a lot of work is going on to get our economy growing again after 14 years of very limited growth. But I do think factors including multi-year settlements will go a long way to relieve some of the pressures we're facing. And hopefully, when our economy is growing again, things will be better.
Well, didn't even have to read it out. So excellent. No, yeah, obviously I take exception to the characterisation of the coalition period as one of low growth. It had some of the fastest growth in the G7, but obviously since then, particularly since the Brexit referendum, we've had low growth in this country, and I do welcome the government's embrace of the economic growth agenda. It's high time. It's high time we had that. I recall the 2010 government also inherited a very, very poor financial position, and some people made political hay out of the decisions that had to result from that. But maybe now we'll all be a bit more grown up. Who knows? Okay, thank you for that. Any more comments on this report? Do forgive that indulgence. Thank you. In that case, can we agree the report? I take silence as the end of the meeting. Thank you. Next item is the Waste and Street Scene Policy Committee Year Ahead report. Richard.
Thank you, Chair. This paper sets out the forward agenda for Waste and Street Scene Policy Committee for 24-25 municipal year. As you're aware, we've just had the financial report, but also across performance in 23-24. We've made significant improvements in establishing the committee, creating positive and collaborative foundations with partners and communities across the city, which to build a successful, prosperous future for Sheffield is key. With the city goals and council plan now firmly in place, we have clear strategic direction for the medium to long term. However, we've got significant steps to take if we want to deliver our council plan, strategic outcomes for the city and contribute to the city achieving its goals, including all Sheffield's neighbourhoods will be clean, safe, green and good places to live and visit, supporting more Sheffielders to live happy, healthier and fulfilling lives, deliver a programme of sustained activity across SC services and with partners and residents to improve how our streets and open spaces are maintained, working with communities on new ways to build engagement into the way we work so that we listen better and work together to share and to find shared solutions. Work with Sheffielders to protect and enhance the local environment, including climate action and waste strategies. And finally, to help keep our citizens safe through a range of public protection and regulatory services. This purpose sets out the key issues that Waste and Street Scene will need to consider over the coming year and beyond. It's not intended to be an exhaustive list of all the issues covered by this committee or all the things that we need to be done over the coming year, but it provides a higher level overview of the progress we need to make to deliver for the council and for the city. So in 2023-24, we demonstrated how Waste and Street Scene focused on delivering better outcomes for the people of Sheffield. The following sections highlighted in the report, which I won't go through verbatim, detail some of the highlight outcomes we achieved, aligned to our council plan policy drivers, which are people, prosperity and planet. So making it happen, underpinning all the achievements above, is ongoing engagement to ensure we are connected to our communities and have a relentless focus on improving services to offer great customer experiences to all Sheffielders and visitors to our city. Critical is ensuring that we make the best use of our financial resources and empower our staff with the skills they need to deliver the best outcomes for our city. We have maintained our strong track record of prudentially managing our finances, as we've just said on the previous item, and again set a balanced committee budget for 24-25 for this year. However, we still need to deliver our proposed savings and ensure that our services are efficient and effective at delivering the right solutions for citizens, including identifying more opportunities to secure external funding and partners to support our work. We need to spot risks early and prevent problems getting worse and to align our resources to deliver the outcomes of the council plan. For the forward plan, the section sets out some of our key issues and outcomes that the Waste and Street Scene Policy Committee will focus on for the year ahead. These are also aligned to our service business plan. Aligned to our council plan outcomes, it's not intended, as I mentioned previously, to be an exhaustive list, and via knowledge briefings, via formal briefings, we will work and develop the programme as we go forward over the next 12 months. Waste and Street Scene has a diverse role in our committee system, providing a wide range of council services. Ensuring the coordination of cross-cutting themes between different policy areas will also be key to successful delivery of our work plan. And again, we are looking at sharing briefings with particularly TRC committees to make sure the committees are fully joined up and embedded. So section 3.3, 3.4, 3.5 and 3.8 set out the functions and the key priorities as mimicked in our service plan for this year. The consultation on that, we've had a session back in March with previous members of Waste and Street Scene to develop those ideas, and we've had a number of knowledge briefings to further develop those. We've got a session this afternoon to look at the forward plan as well. As I've already mentioned, this will be a work in progress. This is at the point in time, but new priorities will emerge and we'll make sure we reflect those in the service plan. So consultation, as emphasised in our council plan, putting people at the heart of what we do in our three policy drivers and developing our approach to community engagement and our focus on customers is a critical part of the work programme for the year ahead. For each of the listed project priorities, there will be a series of community engagement and consultations to help shape outcomes and inform decisions. A number of sessions have already taken place, as I previously mentioned, with Waste and Street Scene members to develop these priorities, and again, these will be reflected on an almost weekly basis for our knowledge briefings. So alternative options considered, not set a forward agenda for 24-25. This was rejected because having agreed a new council plan, we need to set out for citizens the things we want to achieve in 24-25 and be able to performance manage those throughout the year. The reasons for recommendations. The recommendations support the continued strategic development of the organisation and will enable delivery of our council plan by agreeing the key issues that this committee needs to address in the 24-25 year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Christine.
Thank you. This might sound like a silly question. I thank you for the report, and I'm supportive of all the things that are going on. And I'm appreciative of all the work we do on trading standards, and we've done some work on illicit tobacco and animal welfare, and a lot of these have resulted in court cases. My question is, when we go to court, it costs the council a lot of money, although we get good outcomes for the city. We don't get any of that money back in fines or anything, do we? I mean, isn't there a disincentive for us to go to court if it's a very big financial expense? How do we cover the court costs? Because a lot of these have to go to court, and I'm just curious about the expense to the council of being really successful and taking all these things to court. Is there a contradiction?
Thanks, Councillor. It depends on the area. Generally, we are able to recover our fees. There is a risk element, because if we do go to court and we lose, then obviously we have to stand to our fees. Sometimes we go to court and the person we're prosecuting then is allowed to pay by an instalment plan, so it takes a number of months, years, etc. to get those fees back. But generally, we are able to recover our fees. There is a balance to be drawn on when we do proceed to court. So obviously we try and encourage and change behaviours. We issue fixed penalty fines to try and negate going to court. But if we do go to court, we just need to make sure that process is clear and the risk around it. So if we do end up in a situation where we increase, I know it's on the forward plan for later in the year, if we increase our fixed penalty fine ratio significantly and people just can't afford to pay, we could end up in court more often, and then there's a risk, reputation and financial risk there. So it depends on the situation, but generally we can recover our court fees.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you for producing this, Richard. I understand the importance of having an operational plan for the year like this. I welcome that, and the committee is here in a way to support that as much as anything. So, if you have any asks of us in terms of what we might do, obviously at a policy level to help delivery, then do bring them forward. If I was going to nitpick, I would grumble about the under Planet, the deferral of food waste, given that I thought going ahead with food waste would have been even better for the planet. But let's not rehash that particular debate. I'm not seeing any more hands on this, so can we agree the report? Is that agreed? Take silence at the end of the meeting, and that is agreed. Thank you very much. Okay, next item is the review of general licensing fees and charges. If you want to introduce yourselves and the report, thank you.
Hello, I'm Ian Ashmore, Assistant Director of Inventory Regs and Licensing.
My name is Dominic Stokes. I'm the Interim Chief Licensing Officer looking after licensing general.
And I'm Jane Goff, Licensing Strategy and Policy Officer for the alcohol licensing.
Thank you, Chair. So you'll see a report before you, very similar to the taxi fees, looking at increasing fees where we have discretion around other licensing, as we call it. So if you look at Appendix A to the document, you'll see a list of different types of activities that we regulate, and the proposal is that we increase fees around those. So you'll see a lot of it's relating to animal licensing, street trading, cafe pavement licensing, sexual entertainment,
and skin treatments. We've got scrap metal on there as well. For illustrative purposes, we've put in some of the costs associated with prescribed licence fees around the Licensing Act, such as liquor licensing, etc. We don't have the discretion to change those, but it's just there for illustrative purposes to see how much more it costs us as a licensing authority to administer those functions. So the fees haven't been increased, similar to the taxi licensing fees, since 2016. So this is a bit of a catch-up exercise. This is all based on full cost recovery. So we've done some calculations on pre- and post-application costs associated with each type of activity. You can see there the majority of fees are going up, most between around about between 25 and 35%, but there are some outliers there where the fees are going up quite substantially. So, for example, sexual entertainment venues, we will be looking at 150% increase. Not that we have any at the moment, but a lot of the increase is around the enormous amounts of policy work we do around that. Just looking through the report, you can see the various bits of legislation that this is done under. We are not proposing to consult on these increases. There's no legal requirement to do so. And as you can see, there are a lot of disparate operators that aren't really connected in the type of activity they do. So on the most part, very relatively modest increases in fees. We don't feel it would be practical to go out to a full consultation on this. The calculations we've done around how much income this will bring in extra, we're looking around about £12,000 a year added to what our income is around these. The vast majority of income is from liquor licensing, where we don't have the discretion to change the fee. So we're looking around about 14.5% of the income where we have this discretion. Yeah, so as I said, if the committee is minded to agree to this, we would be looking to increase the fees in line with the table set out in Appendix A.
Thank you. I've got, David and then Christine.
Sorry, the proposals you make, I was just interested in the things you can do nothing about, the sort of alcohol licensing fees. Do they come anywhere near covering costs? And even if they do, do you feel limited in what you can do in terms of work around alcohol licensing because of those fees? And is it something we as a committee ought to be making some representations on either way?
Yeah, so we are planning to do that. We did the full cost exercise around the Licensing Act premises fees, and if you look at Appendix 1 at the bottom there, so for example, we're undercharging by about 200% really. We're allowed to charge £190, and we reckon it costs us about £587 to actually process and deal with those applications. So it's huge, and they've not gone up since the Licensing Act came in. So we'd like to make some representations on that basis to say, look, we need to increase. You need to allow us to increase the fees, because ultimately the taxpayer is subsidising each and every licence that we're issuing. Tens, for example, I think we're allowed to charge £21, and we reckon each one costs us about £177 to deal with. And we get a lot.
Thanks for that. So do we want to write as a committee, or should we be advised again that the back channels will be entirely sufficient?
I'm happy for us to write as a committee.
There we go. If you can maybe draft something for us, some evidence in it would be wonderful. Christine.
Hi, thank you. I have two small questions. One is about street trading fruit and veg, page 91 I think it's on, and compared with street trading ice cream. I'm just curious, as a council, we do want to promote health, well-being, you know, and the public health director would prefer us all to be eating fruit and veg rather than ice cream. So I'm just curious, why does it cost more to register a fruit and veg stall than an ice cream stall? And is there any logic behind this? And I'll give you my second question, and then you can answer. It was just about, I noticed the increase for breeding dogs is going up quite a large percent. And I'm just hoping that that isn't going to put people off and have underground breeding and these horrible animal, you know, farms that people don't license. And I just want to make sure we've considered that we're not putting people off registering and doing it legitimately. So those are my two questions.
Do you want to say anything about ice cream?
What can you say about ice cream? Just to reiterate what Dom said, really, that all these calculations have been made in line with what we have to do in the application process to process the applications. So it may well be that the application process is different for both. I don't directly deal with street trading.
Yeah, it will be. It will be slightly. So ice cream is basically an ice cream van, isn't it? And if you park one outside a school, that's a second element of the ice cream van fee. But yeah, I mean, it's all based on cost recovery, so it will have been worked out in terms of what's involved in processing the application and any enforcement that's around that. But I do take your point.
Christian, can you use the mic, please?
Sorry, I'd like to ask if it could be possible to look at making it a bit easier to license healthy foods as opposed to unhealthy foods as a city policy.
Point taken.
Yes, let's not get into the hot food takeaway debate again. I raise that far too often. I suppose that legally we could choose not to recover the whole cost of the fruit and veg stall, but we can't go above the full cost of the ice cream stall. So we could choose to subsidise very slightly. In the scheme of things, a very tiny amount. The cost of running a fruit and veg stall, that would be a decision that is open to us.
We have put that in the alternative options. We could increase them. We could not increase them at all, or we could increase them by a lesser amount. It's within our discretion.
Okay, I've got Sue and then Manesh.
Thank you. I think my questions are more factual explanation type questions because I'm a bit bewildered by this list. Firstly, I'm interested why street traders outside a football match have to be licensed, but if it's a rugby match or a cricket match, they don't. Is that right? Or I just don't understand it. I mean,
shall I just say? Yeah.
It's on.
Is it on?
It's already on.
I'll have to come back to you on that question. I'm afraid I don't know.
I think it's all just based on legislation that there are, very specific. It's a weird and wonderful set of different powers and things. Some of these go back, a very long time. Some of them may reflect historic issues and maybe are not as relevant now, but it reflects older legislation. So and challenges. So I think that's the reasons. And I think with football, you certainly have potential big crowds, don't you? And big numbers, temporary things. So.
Okay, thank you. It's interesting that you're confused as me. I presume that if people, I don't know, it may well be the same traders, however. My second question is around the skin premises. And again, I'm just really wondering what that covers. I know, obviously it covers acupuncture, but you've put and other. Does it include people who are doing Botox and that sort of thing?
Tattoo artists, piercing, what else? Acupuncture.
Skin piercing, basically.
Yeah, so
it pierces the skin.
So acupuncture, tattoos, and piercings.
Well, Botox was the question, I think.
Yeah. So does it include people who are doing Botox type treatment?
we don't think.
No, I think that there are moves to look at that, but historically on the pacing side, Sheffield's got a really good track record because sadly we did have a situation a number of years ago where a young person died following a pacing. So it's generally been something that the team have looked at in great detail, and there was a very active campaigner in Sheffield around that issue. So the standards are something normally our health and safety team have worked very closely on with licensing around those sort of things. So it is, and it's become very, very popular, as you're aware. So there's been an explosion in the number of premises, as you're probably aware. So it's an increasing area of work, specifically on the Botox. I think we'd have to
medical procedure, isn't it? It's not covered by this.
I mean, I presume what you're licensing are things that are laid down in legislation and what has to be licensed. Yeah. So my final question is, if I've read it right, these haven't been looked at since 2016?
Yes.
Is there a reason for that? Because that just seems, I mean, you know, it's 8 years.
It's the same as the taxi licensing, so our thoughts are that the reports were brought at the same time. Obviously, we had COVID for a couple of years in between, but it should be reviewed on an annual basis, and the proposal going forward is that's what we will do, similar to the taxi licensing situation.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that both on this and taxes, that there is a new approach, and some of the changes that were made, some of the structural changes that we've made across the department have in part been to ensure that we can bring things like this on a more regular basis. We've had a lot more, we've had really good finance input into this, and I would thank our finance colleagues in terms of the refreshed approach. So I think moving forward it will be a much more straightforward process that will benefit everyone, be very transparent.
I would say it's quite a significant piece of work as well, because you can see all the different types of activity that all have to be costed separately. So it does take a bit of pulling together, but now we've done it, I think going forward a review will be much easier, because we'll be just looking at very minor changes rather than just trying to start from scratch, really.
I must say, I've seen Minesh, I've got Peter, I'm just going to jump in.
Sorry,
Sue,
one last very quick, I mean, I can appreciate it would have been a big piece of work, but I do think we need to keep it up to date in the future. Can I just say that I would actually support Christine's idea that if a stall is only selling fruit and veg, that actually keeping the cost for that down, I would support that.
Okay, so yes, let's come to that one after the questions. I just did want to jump in on the inflation point. Looking at these numbers, they strike me as actually quite low for 8 years worth of inflation. That we're still talking about real terms cut for most of these. I don't have the figures in front of me for what the CPI deflator has done since 2016, but I imagine like 40 or 50% would be a fair inflationary increase on a lot of these. So I guess that means we're just being a lot more efficient than we were 8 years ago, which would be great. But I suppose the question is, or are we doing less in terms of checking up and enforcement and so on that ought to be done and ought to be charged in these fees?
I don't think that's the case. I think this is probably the first time we've done a real deep dive and looked at the actual costs and cost recovery on these. That would to get a truer figure about what it really costs us and what we should be charging.
Okay, thank you. Minesh.
Thanks, Chair. Mine was also on Christine's point. I'd actually say I don't think we should get into the position of differentiating fees rather than trying to recharge for the service provided. I don't think that's a good approach, and I think it's going to lead to a lot more work to try and review on a case-by-case basis if we're defining ad hoc on what might be a healthier or less healthy service, and would have to, investigate whether they only do sell fruit and veg. I think it's much cleaner if we do recharge for all the costs provided. I think as well on the point about ice cream, we all remember Douglas Johnson trying to ban ice cream vans in 2019. I don't think we want to repeat of that anymore as well.
Peter.
Thank you, Chair. So I would be tempted to jump on the ice cream van wagon. But first, on Appendix A, Table 1 on whatever page that is, page 90, I was just wondering if these are, as you say, and I believe they are, all related to the costs of the service, obviously up to the cap that you're allowed to through legislation?
No, there's no cap. This is purely cost recovery, so it's at our discretion what we charge.
Thank you.
But we do have to, we can't charge more than it costs us to provide the service.
So would it be possible to, or I would suggest it might be helpful to add just one more column onto that says specifically what the cost is, or are you by this inferring that the cost is what you recommend the new cost to be, to the pound?
Yes, that's it. So where we've put the new fee, that's what we've costed it out as. And renewals are costing us the same as a new application.
Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, I appreciate that. And no, Douglas was not trying to ban ice cream vans. He was trying to reduce the amount of emissions by playgrounds, which I'm sure we'd all agree is not what we want for our children.
Right, I don't see any more hands. Do we have a proposal on the fruit and veg stall item? So,
I think it would be better we just had, if it's possible, to have some advice as to whether there are many of these fruit and veg stalls that sell just fruit and veg, and if it would be possible to identify them or separate them from stalls that sell a few apples and also sell other stuff.
Just to add in something there, in terms of the fruit and veg sellers, then it's not a static stall, it's a mobile van, so like a white, what sort of van would you call it? Any sort of van that meets the spec of within the policy. So they're limited to where they can stop and trade, but they can only stop for 20 minutes at a time, then they must move on. So the actual logistics behind the licence that they're allowed to operate under is completely different to someone who's stood still and trading, like on a stall, for example. Just making you aware that it's not just someone who stood there selling fruit and veg. That's a completely different sort of licence that would come under a static street trading consent. The specific mobile fruit and veg consent are the ones that actually travel around the streets and stop on your street corner or wherever they're allowed to stop and trade out of the back of the van, serve the fruit and veg, and then they must move on to the next place. So the logistics of how they can trade is completely different, which is where obviously there's different enforcement, there's different conditions that they must adhere to, which obviously is very different to how an ice cream van can operate.
okay, thanks for that clarification. I don't think I've ever seen such a thing. Do we actually have them?
Yeah, yes.
I did. Fish, yeah, fish vans come round, and maybe this is forward. You know, I don't know. I did have a chap when I lived in Crooks. Knocked on the door once, and he had a little white van full of potatoes. And he said he was a farmer, and he couldn't. The supermarket refused them, and he was selling them off cheap. But I don't know if I don't know if he had a license, but he probably should have had one. Okay, do we have a proposal on this? No, I don't think we do. Okay, turning to the recommendations in the report then, I will take silence as the agreement to the meeting that is agreed. Okay, that is agreed. Thank you very much. Okay, so it's 12:05. We've got the waste collection, which I think might be a substantial item. I'm hoping that the last two are fairly short. I think we will have to extend, and on that basis, I'm inclined to give us 5 minutes break now, if members are happy with that. Yeah, okay, let's take 5 minutes and come back at 12:15. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the future waste collection service options for consultation. Neil, if you'd like to come and introduce yourself and the reports. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Neil Townrow, the Waste Services Manager. The purpose of the report is to seek approval to deliver a proposed public and stakeholder consultation strategy to inform changes to Sheffield's recycling services. The report sets out the requirements of the Environment Act, which under simple recycling is going to require all local authorities in England to collect the same materials for recycling as a minimum. And for Sheffield, that means we're going to have to add in plastics, pots, tubs, trays, cartons, aluminium and aerosols by 31st of March 2026 and plastic films by 31st of March 2027. We've also got some other legislation changes coming through, extended producer responsibility, which essentially from next year is going to make producers of packaging responsible for the full net cost of that packaging, and there'll be incentives to increase the recyclability because they'll pay less money on that packaging if it's recyclable. So that should drive up the amount of recycling that's going into the recycling bins. Also, the government planning to introduce from 2027 a deposit return scheme, and that will see all drinks, so cans and plastic bottles, when you purchase it at a retailer, supermarkets and any other shops, basically have to pay something like 20p, that's what's indicated, on the top of that price, which you'll then get back when you take it back to the retailer for recycling. That should have an impact in terms of reducing the amount of waste going into curbside bin collections moving forwards. So in addition to simple recycling, extended producer responsibility and deposit return scheme, the report also highlights the current service performance in terms of where we are with current services, and that highlights from customer satisfaction surveys and analysis of our performance against other local authorities that our paper and card collections, the capacity may be insufficient for what's out there. And so with the changes that are required to accommodate all this, there's also the potential to address the paper and card element as well. To inform the changes that we need to make to move the service forward, we're proposing to run an 8-week public consultation exercise with 2 sets of questions, one aimed at people living in houses, one aimed at people living in flats. And the idea is that we'll ask questions on the potential changes to the number and size of containers provided, changes to recycling facility so that we can address the capacity to ensure that we are well placed moving forward for the changes. The consultation will be supported by various communications to maximise awareness and explain the importance of having a say, and details of the consultation will be included in a calendar going out citywide, so we'll get really good coverage. It'll be hosted online, but we'll also make paper copies available for people on request. The timescales of the proposed consultation will extend into October because we're very conscious that students living in the city may not be around end of term, and that will give students an opportunity to take part in the consultation when they return. At the same time as this consultation exercise, we've also working with Veolia to cost up some potential service options, what that looks like, and also we're working with RAP, the Waste and Resources Action Programme, to do some carbon impact modelling. So the potential service change options, we have a full understanding of, yes, what the costs are from Veolia, working through that, but also what the carbon impact, the environmental benefit and impact has from those service options. And those, together with the public consultation exercise, we'll look to bring everything together for a second report to committee, which will actually make recommendations about what the service changes will be moving forward for approval.
Thank you so much. So let me just take some hands first. I've got Christine and David. Is that all so far? Okay. Before I bring people in, I just want to, thank you for the report, for the work that's gone into it. There's clearly a changing landscape, isn't there, with, was that you, Minesh? Sorry, yeah. No? Sue, right, thank you. There is a framework following from the Environment Act, as we're all aware, elements of which have been delayed a little bit over time, but there is, but that's the framework that we're working through and working towards the delivery of. But I'm conscious that there has been a change of government, and so I would like to do my favourite thing and put Minesh on the spot again, if you're with us, Minesh. Just to ask, do you think, in terms of waste strategy, do you think the Labour government's ambition will be any different to that of the Conservatives?
I imagine there'll be some change to move away from the culture wars 7 bins framing of the Tory government and add a level of simplicity and ease, but I think plans are to come.
Thank you. Yes. Well, I mean, yes. We weren't planning 7 bins anyway, I don't think, were we? So, but yes, no, points well made. I think on that basis, we proceed with the framework we have. Obviously, this is a consultation point. If there are changes, it would be helpful to us if we know about them sooner rather than later. I think it would be fair to say, wouldn't it? Okay, Christine.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I welcome the changes. I think it's great that they're going to happen. And thank you for all the work into this report. I have 2 questions. One is, will we get to see the consultation that goes out to the public before it goes out? And the reason I ask that is because on page 117, Appendix 3, it gives the service options, and there are 8 of them, and I can't follow those. So I'm hoping that we'll have a much simpler offer that we're giving to the consumer, because I probably wouldn't fill that in if I had to choose from 8 options personally. It's just too complex. So I think as a committee we might like to see the consultation that goes out, and we can send comments on it. And my other point, and I have raised this with you anyway, is that from my experience in my ward, and therefore I expect most wards across the city, there are problems with houses of multiple occupancy or large blocks of flats with communal bin areas. So I really welcome a more detailed discussion or consultation with those properties to see if we can find a way forward, because I'm reporting regularly of unemptied bins in communal areas, and I think we really need to, as a city, to try and look what we can do. I know it is supposed to be the responsibility of the residents, but I'll leave it there.
In response to the first question, absolutely. So the questions will be devised, and then we'll bring them to share them with members to have comment before we go live with it. The service options, the 8 options, as you correctly say, we discussed and had a meeting with the pre-election. We were told to go through those before we took those to Veolia. It's not the intention to make those, well, it's publicly available in the report, but the questions won't focus on that. It's more about the general principles in terms of, you know, your appetite for having an additional bin, or a different size container, or a different collection frequency. So to keep it sort of quite general, but actually getting the full picture will help us inform where we take it forward, with the information from costs and also the carbon impact associated with it. Flats. So as part of this exercise, we will be running stakeholder consultations. We'll be contacting, obviously social landlords, council housing being a big player for us, but the other linkages that we've got as well, other contacts. So we'll make them aware of the consultation, but also encourage stakeholder meeting as well to have a discussion with them about it. You're right, flats are a challenge in terms of there, because as we all know, there's no single one household or person taking responsibility of that container, so it only takes for one household or whatever to do it wrong, and it can cause issues. So we do have a number of supporting services available in terms of a free reset every 6 months and then a chargeable reset after that. And I think part of it is making sure that everyone is clear about what the service offer is, and the managing agents and landlords, and to a degree residents as well, understand what the offer is so that it can be accessed moving forward to address the issues. Yeah, so definitely on the radar stuff. Thanks. David?
I think that's been just about been answered. I was going to say, make Christine's point about the flats, you know, around there, and what people do, they use the black bin first. Once that's full, they use the other bins, and then they don't get emptied for 6 months, and you've got an issue. And I don't know how you solve it, but I think it needs to be borne in mind, because it is a big problem.
It's a problem. It's not unique to Sheffield. It's a problem across the whole country, really. It's the nature of it, and it is about, yes, it's about information, sharing information, and having the support services there, but also having the dialogue with managing agents and landlords. Some flats in the city work absolutely fine, no problem at all, and then there's other ones where you get repeat issues, and it's just something we have to work with, but hope to improve.
Thanks. Sue.
Thank you. Yeah, really welcome this, and I think it's really important that we get as wide contribution from the public as possible to the survey. So I really just want to ask a little bit more about how you're going to alert people to the presence of this consultation. You know, we know that there are people who don't engage with a lot of different council services, so it can be quite difficult to reach people. So I just wondered what thoughts you'd given to spreading the information far and wide. Just as and I'm not suggesting this is a solution, but it may be a contribution. All the LACs have public meetings around the end of September, and a presence at those may just elicit some further response. And I also wondered whether within the consultation, I know this is about domestic and, you know, collection, but whether it's also worth asking people's views on slightly wider issues, such as around bring sites, and whether we might actually get some useful information, even if it isn't for immediate use, while we're doing the consultation.
In terms of the, I suppose it's the communication exercise to support the stakeholder public consultation. So at the basic level, or the general level, we'll obviously be issuing, using Gov Delivery to get the message out via that. There'll be the collection calendar going out, which goes to all houses, which will have very clearly labelled and promoted on the envelope, as well as inside their QR code and web link to actually have your say, and stressing the importance of having your say. So that'll go out to all in August, that'll go out. So that will take place, supported through social media, and also we will be contacting various groups, and that is set out in Appendix 4 of the report. So we'll be directly contacting the LACs, offering our attendance if desired for us to attend to talk through it, meeting with council housing, but also, I mean, I won't name them all, but speaking with the Sheffield Equalities Network, Voluntary Action Sheffield, various local groups around the city, Packer Centre, and just various groups. Any groups that we know of that might have an input into this, we will contact them, make them aware of it, so that they can spread the word and try and maximise the feedback and responses that come through. With regards to more general questions, yes, we can. I think that there is part of it where we can expand it to a certain other things. I think we need to be making sure that it's not too lengthy, because we don't want to turn people off from filling in the consultation, and making sure it's targeted what we need. But absolutely, we can look to include a question on bring sites. We know from discussions that there are some issues with bring sites at the moment in terms of excess materials or fly tip waste going out there. We are working to address those, but I think from a public point of view, I think it would be good to understand, with a more encompassing recycling service at the bins, is there still the appetite for bring sites moving forward? What's the sort of appetite for them? And that can inform where we take it forward as well. It's not a decision we need to take straight away with it, and it might be that we actually let the new services come in to play before we take a decision on it, but possibly would be good to get that feedback.
I think maybe I misheard Sue's question on bring sites. I thought it was, have you thought about consulting with the people who use bring sites by doing something at the bring site? I don't know, a sign with a QR code on it or something like that. Which I thought, that's a really interesting idea. Of course, if you ask people, you know, is your blue bin full? They'll say, yes, why do you think I'm here? You know. But you know, people who obviously use bring sites are engaged with recycling, aren't they? And they're likely to be highly engaged people, so that good to hear from them. I just on while we're on this topic, I did want to ask. I've had a number of people say to me, I've not had a bin calendar this year, and I expect to get a bin calendar every year. I've not had one. If there are places there still due to go out, can we put in a consultation thing with that? Just so they can, you know, just using one piece of communication for two purposes. Would that be possible?
Absolutely, yeah. So, yeah, the calendar's been delayed slightly. The reason for that is we wanted to take advantage of the calendar to actually add the information about the consultation within it. So it's obviously very cost efficient to do that. So I think there's about a month gap on that. So yes, absolutely.
Brilliant. You're way ahead of me. Excellent. Okay, Peter.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome what is happening and welcome the simpler recycling and welcome what the government is doing to reduce the amount of waste and increase the amount of collection. But at the same time, we must always remember to reduce foremost, reduce and then recycle really as a last resort. So can the consultation, or what can you do to bring in the idea of reduction in waste produced by Sheffield into the consultation, and how we can encourage people to do that? I know Veolia might like to collect lots of waste because, as we know, where there's muck, there's brass, but we should be trying to reduce as much as possible.
That's a very valid point. It is top of the waste hierarchy in terms of reducing the waste. I think, I suppose, when in terms of really driving down and encouraging waste minimisation and waste reduction, the key driver is, and this is a very political thing, I understand, but it's about reducing residual waste collection capacity, because that, in essence, forces people to utilise the remaining recycling bins that's there. Within the report, it does state that at this moment in time, the current thinking is not to make changes to the black bin collection capacity unless there's a public desire to do so. We did propose that the question is in there about understanding people's appetite in terms of a reduction in black bin capacity. Whether it's acted upon now or acts as a baseline for future consideration to see how that might change over the years once we've got more recycling services in place. So I think that's key for getting that information through in terms of setting a starting point. The other side is we will be reproducing a waste strategy for the city, and that will go into more detail on potential waste reduction initiatives and campaigns. Historically we've run home composting campaigns to some degree. I mean, in the past, not so much recently, but we've linked with the mail preference service to reduce the amount of direct mail going into properties. We've run real nappy campaigns to encourage that. They're difficult to measure some of the successes from that, but they are all things that we can actively push, as well as smart shopping, not buying everything with all the packaging on, which actually hopefully through EPR that should have some impact on that as well. But there's also some consumer choices as well which we push and promote. So certainly the waste strategy that will be done will concentrate more on that. But I'm happy to sort of have discussions about what that might look like in terms of the consultation, potentially have some waste min type questions, but also conscious of the fact that we do need to make sure that we're not overly burdening the number of questions to focus on what we're trying to get from this.
Thanks for that. Yeah, I mean, I would say, I don't want to go into it again, but I have doubts about the lever of reducing black bins. Certainly last year on this committee, we had Mark Jones was the deputy chair, and we went round parts of his ward where clearly the black bins weren't big enough, and there was an awful lot of just waste everywhere. And that was, and the size of the black bins, I think, was probably part of the reason. So, you've got to be careful how you go about these things. It's treat these things. I have my doubts about that as a lever. Although it has been policy-wise over the years, that has been one of the levers for encouraging recycling. Mary.
I'd agree with that last point. Communities differ in how they live and work and so on, so we just need to take heed of that. And on that, I mean, I'm just wondering how local the consultation will be, and getting really down into local communities. I think the LAX is fine, a good idea, but getting into our local communities, and particularly in women's groups who, if you want to change a household, go to a woman and she will change it for you if she agrees with you. So just going to ensuring you get to the right people in local communities, and bearing in mind that certainly in some areas, maybe Burn Green and Darnell, there are a lot of newcomers that come in and then go out again, so that there's a bit of churn going on as well. And we have the same problems that you've mentioned in Darnell, in Burn Green, in Darnell. Bins are misused because people move on.
Before I answer that, can we agree to extend the meeting by half an hour? Take silence as assent. Thank you. That's agreed. Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. The more we get this out there, the more responses we get, the more representative the feedback is, and the better information set that we've got for take these decisions forwards. I think the report does set out the known groups that we're looking to actively contact with it. So if there's any other groups that you're aware of, and we'll ask you obviously at the LAX as well, then please let us know, because we'll actually contact them directly as well and make sure they're aware and trying to get the word out for sure. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm not seeing more hands. I just wanted to clarify, because it was touched on at the beginning, the service options on Appendix 3, that we have seen these in briefings as well and discussed those. That's not, we're not going to consultation saying which of these do you want. No, that's not the plan at all. That is a list of kind of options for us, as it were, to see what the sort of options might be. So we don't need to consider those now or thin them down or anything like that. That would not be, you know, we don't need to do that at this point. Okay, so I'm not seeing any more hands. So if we can move to the recommendations. If there are no further comments, can we take silence as the agreement of the meeting to those recommendations? Yes, that is agreed. Thank you very much. Okay, item 13, camera enforcement procurement. Salvi, do you want to come and introduce yourself and the report? Thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm Sabi Hanif, I'm Parking Services Manager. So the purpose of the report is to seek proposal to purchase 20 ANPR cameras. ANPR stands for Automatic Number Plate Recognition Enforcement Cameras, and also a new ANPR enforcement camera for our current camera car to enforce new moving traffic restrictions and new schemes as part of the Transforming Cities Fund. The Council also wishes to commission a 4-year maintenance contract, as outlined in the report, for these new cameras. We currently don't have a contract in place to purchase any new cameras, and currently we do have around about 15 ANPR cameras for our bus lane and gate enforcement. The cameras pick vehicles' number plate when they are in a contravention. This is reviewed by our ANPR reviewers team. To confirm the contravention has occurred, a handshake is done between the back office system to locate the registered keeper details, and a PCN is posted in the post. We have had these cameras since 2013, and early this year we have gone through a 4G upgrade due to a 3G network shutting down. The current cameras have been operating for around about 10 years now, and we initially did start with 2. And then since then it has increased, and we are expecting that this will increase further, especially when we're getting the 20 new cameras coming on board. The current contract for the maintenance is with the SEA road floor at the moment, and that has been extended until 31st of March 2025. Part of the proposal is to include the remaining 3 years for the maintenance into the current contract, into this new contract when it expires. The current cameras are old, are not able to be used for multifunction enforcement activity, whereas the latest cameras that are in the market are able to pick contraventions for both bus lane and moving traffic enforcement. The current camera car is also old and does require an upgrade and to be replaced with a new camera with the latest technology. As well as reviewing images, the system is also used for managing and reporting purposes as well. We do have around about 32 ANPR cameras for the clean air zone, which is with a different supplier. And we have recognised during this work that we probably need to do some further work and look at a camera replacement strategy in the future for long term, to look at our estate, and obviously we need to work quite closely with our colleagues in commercial in developing this. The schemes are described in the report that have been approved by the Transport, Regeneration and Climate Committee. The schemes can only be implemented once we have procured the cameras. And currently, as I said, that we don't have a contract in place to purchase these new cameras. The breakdown of costs are listed in the closed Appendix 1. It splits the capital and the revenue expenditure. So the capital expenditure is where we're getting already the funding from the Transforming Cities Fund. Also, First Buster also invested money to purchase a new camera car. And then you've also got the revenue expenditure, which gives you the details how much revenue will be costed to cover the maintenance costs of the duration of the new contract. Just to also flag up that all maintenance costs will be covered by the PCN income. In terms of looking at alternative options, the only option we did have is do nothing. So the council does require the number plate recognition cameras to be able to enforce for bus lane and moving traffic enforcement. Doing nothing means that the current maintenance contract for 15 cameras plus the camera car ends on 31st of March 2025, and there will be no hardware provision. And in addition to this, we would not able to go live with the new schemes that have already been approved, and we do recommend that this is not a viable option. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any hands. Thank you for that report. Can I just ask if you could touch on the question of information security in terms of what the cameras see and what the cameras see in terms of our systems, and also what the cameras see in terms of, well, I'm conscious the question came to full council on Wednesday that was concerned about, well, in particular, sort of Chinese suppliers of sensitive information systems across the world, and the potential that would have for vulnerabilities for the West. Can you touch on that at all?
Yes, of course. In terms of the cameras can pick up the VRMs, the systems are quite good that, because we have to do a data impact assessment, we have to make sure we blur if anything else that we do pick up during the cameras. So like, you know, if there was any faces or, you know, any people, they normally get blurred out. So it's only the VRMs that do get picked up during those cameras. In terms of going back, we also got that information about the Chinese cameras, and we have checked with the current supplier, and the cameras that we use and the new ones that we're looking to purchase don't have any Chinese parts. So we are a low risk. There are other LAs that have got those sort of cameras, but we haven't got that, so there won't be any risks relating to this contract.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm not seeing any hands, so if we can move to recommendations, I will take silence as the assent to the meeting. Okay, thank you very much. That's agreed. Thank you. One more item, item 14. Sabia?
Thank you, Chair. So the next report is it's about our parking back office system that we've got. The current contract is with WSP at the moment. That was procured in February 2022, and it's been around about 5 years. The parking back office system is a fundamental and critical to support the enforcement activities across the service. The number of functions that the parking back office delivers to meet our service delivery requirements are like parking enforcement. So with our civil enforcement officers that are on street, they'll have the software uploaded to their handhelds and also integrated with their printers, so they're able to issue a PCN penalty charge notice on street instantly. Also for bus lane enforcement and clean air zone, so we review the images, so that's with the third parties that are integrated with our parking back office system. So they review the images and then it gets connected to the back office where it does issue a PCN after checking registered vehicle details. A PCN is issued through the post. It also deals with PCNs via appeals and challenges, processing payments and issuing permits, CAS exemptions, processing dispensations. Also the system is used for managing reporting purposes and responding to freedom of requests that come through. So overall, the back office allows the council to manage the PCN life cycle in line with our statutory requirements. And it's also, the system is designed to look at it to improve the customer journey as well, to make it easier for customer to review their own contraventions online before making a payment for the penalty charge notices, make it easy for them to send their appeals in, also to set their accounts up for permits. So as you can imagine, it is a very large, complex system that we have got in place, and there are quite a lot of risks involved if it's not the correct system in place. Addition to this, the council also need to procure the back office to manage the moving traffic enforcement as well, the powers that we've already got, including exemptions and alongside any other restrictions. The current contract is to expire 31st January 2025, which brings the total contract length to 5 years, and we've also already, that includes the extension as well. With the current contract ending, there is a need to commission a new civil road traffic enforcement processing system, which will include the processing of the clean air zone enforcement exemptions for further 5 years, including a 1-year extension. The estimate budget cost would be around 150k based on the current contract, and also uplift is included in terms of inflation. If we did not have the system in place, we were not able to undertake the enforcement activities that are described in the report. Just to note, all the costs will be covered by the PCN income, which is already factored in within the current budget. A contract will be let up to a maximum term of 5 years, which will include any extensions. This is considered the optimum to provide stability and best value for council. We wouldn't recommend anything less than this due to how long the procurement exercise takes and the implementation period. In terms of alternative options, we could either do nothing, which the council requires Silver Road traffic enforcement and processing system for parking services to deliver the enforcement activities. Doing nothing means that the current contract ends on 31st of January 2025 and there'll be no software provision, and this is not a viable option. The other option was self-deliver. This would be a significant undertaking requiring skills and resources that the council does not have. Those resources would have to be retained for future updates and functional changes as statutory requirements and business needs change. This is not an option for now, probably want to explore in the future, not aware of any local authorities that have their own, most of the processing is done via external supplier. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I'm not seeing any outbursts. Christine, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I might have missed this, and I apologise if I have. Did you say you're just going to renew the existing contract, or are you going out to tender to look at alternative providers?
No, this is going to be a new contract. We've already extended the current contract. We can't extend it any further. So this is going out to a new contract. So we have been working on our specification in the background to go out to tender.
Thank you. So I'm not seeing any other hands. My question, the same question as on the last report, information security.
Yeah, because this is a back office system, we do have to do a data impact assessment. So everything is processed. It's got security. We do work with our digital team to make sure that that does actually happen. Probably the only bit the customers see is their own data. So when they do connect to our back office system, when they try to make a payment, they will only see their own vehicle. They were not able to see anybody else's.
Yes, I think somebody went wrong with that once, didn't they? One of these portals offered everybody's vehicles, everybody's tickets, didn't they? Okay, that's good. Thank you for that. I'm not seeing any other hands, so if we can move to the decision. Recommendations are on page 138. I'll take silence as the consent of the meeting. Is that agreed? That's agreed. Thank you very much. That concludes the business for today. Thank you all for attending. Peter, you've got your hand up.
Sorry, Chair. Would it be possible to ask one question to the officer before we move on?
Well, we've finished the meeting, but I mean, I'll let you ask a question to the officer. Obviously, the decision has been made at this point. Go on.
No, thank you, and certainly not to contradict any decisions made. Very happy to see first our funding towards our enforcement cameras, and that's great. Are Stagecoach not in that position, or could we not push them for more funding?
This does really sit with the Transport Regeneration Climate Committee, because that's where the funding came through from our colleagues from Transport that have that relationship with them. So it's probably one to ask them.
Thank you. Okay, so that concludes the meeting for today. I believe there's a session straight after this for members of the committee with governance. But the business of the meeting is concluded. Thank you for everybody watching at home. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.